Chapter 186, Do Not Talk About Divine Virtue. Subscribe. As the voice fell, the dark blue figure of Pontos stretched out his arms, attracting a monstrous water curtain. The surging torrent swirled under his strange smile, condensing into a storm that shook the world. The outside gods have no way to perceive the situation on the ocean, because the whole ocean is shaking. The gods who belong to the ocean all jumped up in panic, looking in fear at the gentle homeland they used to rely on, and fled to the sky and land one by one. Countless storms, intertwined with violent oceans, madly invade the kingdom of light. The blazing flame-like light in the sky also dimmed a little. With golden eyes staring at Pontos' enchanting face, Apollo said indifferently, "The resurrected you have become a real ocean. But you and Okeanos seem to be in a different state, and they do not completely obey the 353 in Gaia." In the cascading waves, Pontos chuckled lightly. "It's nothing different. It's all part of the earth, or part of the world." Apollo understood what he meant and said softly, "The Supreme needs its own world, which can be possessed in many ways. Like chaos, he forced many primitives to form the world for him, covering the world with the root of chaos, so as to take control. Gaia, on the other hand, chooses to take its own earth roots as the core and derives the sky, the sea, the mountains, and other kinds. You and Uranus and Uriah, so to speak, were born a part of her. The 12 Titans are also somewhat similar, but not as closely connected as you." 35 Pontos nodded and sighed. "Yes, although it is an independent individual, it is part of the mother's body, and no child is willing to return to the mother's body after birth. But I don't have a choice. Now I am a part of Gaia, because she has ascended to the highest, so I have set foot on the primordial." Suddenly, the tsunami and storm that Pontos rolled up became even more violent and terrifying, surging into the place of light. Apollo smiled lightly. "Since you are not happy, let me free you." Then he added, "Don't worry. I have the experience of how to kill the same person twice. 35 Boom. In the splendid brilliance, 36 pairs of splendid wings spread out again. The bright fire of light swept the sea and sky like an invisible giant hand, beating the waves one by one, suppressing the tsunami. Pontos' eyes were cold, and thousands of violent storms were summoned. These storms wreak havoc on the endless seas, rolling up monstrous waves that quiver even the land and the sky. The gods all over the world were terrified. As far as the eye can see, the endless sea is like a huge beast in rage. A series of waves are its saliva, and violent storms are its sharp teeth. It rises from the wide sea, wakes up from the ancient ignorance, and vows to devour the sky with its huge mouth. Boom, boom, boom. The violent storms became more and more violent in the raging, and the powerful tearing force of the giant beasts gnawed brightly and brightly. The brilliant power of light was bitten and chewed by every inch. In Pontos, the monstrous waves were manipulated, approaching the core of light from another direction. His figure is completely integrated with the ocean. In other words, it is he who is constantly generating oceans and storms, devouring all the enemies to be eliminated. Feeling his power, a smile appeared on the corner of Gaia's mouth in the depths of the earth. Oceanos and Hyperion are really useless. I still have Uranus and the others here, and they can't move lightly. Fortunately, there is Pontos. Apollo, if it was before, you might have been able to fight Pontos, who was promoted to the original, but now that you have been fighting a lot, how much energy do you have left? In the depths of the dark earth, in the majestic palace, the rich woman in the long khaki dress, her eyes fixed on the sky above the ocean. Apparently feeling her grin, Apollo sighed at the waves and storms that were engulfed in all directions. "It's almost exhausted. It's inhumane to play will battles." "Thank you. Gaia is still the grandmother of the gods and is highly respected, but doesn't talk about godliness, so I can't blame me for hanging up." With a sigh, he took out the energy from his arms and was almost sucked, leaving only the horse stone of the root power. Holding this gem tightly, the divine power in his body suddenly boiled. The constant source of power was violently inhaled into his body. The infinite light vibrated endlessly, and the blink of an eye became more than 10 times splendid. The breath of the root. In the surging waves, Ponto's complexion changed, staring at the golden figure in the brilliant light. At this moment, along with the growth of the power of the root, the 36 pairs of splendid wings burst into an incomparably magnificent splendor. The sacred brilliance is like the sharpest knife light, piercing through layers of void, tearing apart thousands of storms, breaking through the surging waves, and ravaging the entire world in the blink of an eye. The gods and mortals raised their heads in amazement, only to see the boundless sky, which was lightly plated with a layer of gold. Gentle warmth, with holiness and purity, spreads all over the world. At the same time, there is a stalwart will. He is the source of light and warmth, the symbol of beauty and hope, the root of light. You were promoted to primordial in the battle. Pontos stared at the bright sky with a gloomy expression. In the infinite light, the aura of the stalwart golden figure gradually stabilized and replied lightly. Although hastily promoted, it is easy to make the foundation unstable. But I came here like this last time, and I have plenty of experience, so don't worry about me. 35 Pontos snorted coldly and whispered, For point 4, even if you get promoted, it's just primordial versus primordial. Our battle has just begun. In the splendid light, Apollo chuckled lightly. Yes, then you will be honored to see the true power of Seraph's wrath. After I was promoted to primordial, I was able to really bring this divine technique into full play. Following his voice, the 36 pairs of burning wings suddenly stretched several times in the void. Each golden feather, like a beating flame, is dazzling golden, extending the sacred and great. Like the Creator who created everything, he sends down his wrath. The horn of the doomsday apocalypse sounded from this. Twilight and twilight forever shrouded the world, and the nights of war, famine, plague, and death brought the judgment of God. Seraph's wrath, God's apocalypse. Chapter 187. The blue sky was dyed like gold by the dazzling light, and the flames of burning wings spread out blazingly into the void, covering the boundless world. When that divine color blooms to the extreme, a deep twilight looms, with anger and judgment in the light, giving the world a decay and exhaustion. The hurricane that was scrolling below dried up in an instant, and the violent storms that originally shook the entire boundless ocean, under this dusk and twilight, seemed to be an old man who had reached the end of his life, and he was no longer angry. With the exhaustion of the storm, the endless tsunami that rolled up the sky also subsided. The waves were scattered and messy, and the blue sea water either evaporated or receded under the light. The boundless sea has changed from an angry and ferocious beast to an old man lamenting the vicissitudes of time under the sunset. I will not lose. Ponto's face shook. He roared into the sky, arms waving. The source of the ocean is turbulent and excited, and the mighty torrent storm is rolled out again. But just as he made the action, the golden figure in the sky covered with divine light also fluttered 36 pairs of splendid wings. The infinite light sinks into the thick twilight, and terrifying scenes such as war, famine, plague, death, etc. suddenly pour out, interweaving a doomsday picture composed of red and black. Terrifying doomsday scenes, with terror and unstoppable power, unfold icy. This is the judgment of God and the final revelation. The horn seemed to be blown loudly, and the drowsy twilight firmly covered Pontos. The shadows of war, famine, plague, and death entangled in his dark blue figure. The former primitive sea god made a shrill cry. I saw that under the heavy twilight, the storm waves around him were completely exhausted and shattered, like foam. At the same time, the sword of war cut through his skin icy. Pontos roared to provoke a divine counterattack. The mighty power of famine was imposed upon him and made him weak. Immediately, the power called the plague made the roots of the ocean dry up and become sick, out of his control. I don't believe that, with the same originality, I will lose so quickly. Pontos struggled hard. His monstrous face flashed unwillingly, and he stared at the sky. And then, the final death came. The light of the sky covers the vast sky. Under the light is the deep and heavy twilight, and in the deepest part of this twilight is the darkest death. The mighty force of death breathes the fragrance of life, bringing the ultimate destination to all things. It is dark, and it is a beautiful flower. When it blooms, it returns to eternal sleep. Pontos saw the black flower. Then he fell. Such bright flowers. I think of Persephone's flowers at the foot of Mount Olympus. 99 gently sniffing the fragrance, Apollo sighed leisurely. With the fall of Pontos, the boiling ocean shook and the usual calm was restored. But an even more terrifying atmosphere, like the omen before a storm, covered the whole world with dullness. Glancing at the depths of the vast earth, Apollo put away his splendid wings and walked to the depths of the ocean step by step. Under the investigation of the ear of the world, he quickly came to a quiet seabed. There is a core like a world hub, exuding invisible power. He was about to move forward. Suddenly, I saw a familiar figure standing near the boundary core. Blue long hair, slender figure, beautiful and graceful cheeks, revealing extravagance. When the woman saw Apollo's arrival, her expression suddenly became flustered, and she stood there trembling. Staring closely at the person who came, she said in a low voice, "I am Sarasia, the queen of the sea, and you killed my husband?" "Sarahia? That's a good name. It's a little easier to remember than your old name." Apollo chuckled lightly, looked at the trembling, graceful woman, and said lightly, "You want to avenge your husband's death, and the two of you are in such a good relationship now? I still remember when you knelt in front of me and begged me to help you deal with him, but of course you don't remember." The graceful woman's cheeks were blank. "When did you kneel before him?" Apollo didn't care about her and walked into the core of the world. "What are you going to do? This is an important thing that concerns the safety of the whole world." Sarasia screamed in excitement and tried to stop it. Apollo's divine power turned into a chain and locked her firmly. Under the fearful gaze of this graceful and beautiful sea queen, he raised his palm, and a magnificent force swept forward violently. The golden light illuminated the dark seabed, and a huge light group of indescribable color and shape appeared in front of the two of them. Under the impact of the violent divine power, the huge light group suddenly shook unceasingly. The boundless ocean trembled at the same time, and the whole world shook. The gods in the sky, the earth and other places all changed color in horror. What happened again? The war in the ocean just now is not over. Although I don't know the outcome, why is it so noisy again? This wave of shaking was even more terrifying than the previous primordial war. In fact, the primordial and the half-primordial are closely integrated with the world. If it falls, the damage to the world is extraordinary. But whether it is Pontos, Okeanos, and others, they're primordial or half-primordial origins from the Mother Earth. They are part of Mother Earth, and therefore part of the world. Although they have fallen, Gaia is still there, and the source automatically returns to the world, so it did not cause much damage. And with the strength of the Angel of Seraph, it is actually possible to kill primordial without damaging the source, although it will be much more difficult to kill primordial. The mighty power of light rages on the quiet seabed. The huge light group is like a baby in danger of life and death, shaking and struggling, but the brilliant light firmly locks it. Brilliant power, tightly covered. Soon, it gradually melted like ice cubes. Just as it melted, in the depths of the dark earth, the woman who was sitting upright suddenly let out an angry roar. One after another, dark tentacles like tree roots and vines drilled out from under the skirt and spread to the boundless world. The sky, the earth, the underworld, 5 different corners, at the same time, the majestic and mighty power rises, surging towards the ocean cage. But just as she moved, in the deep chaos that enveloped nothingness outside the world, a mighty force also emerged. As if the flood finally found a breakthrough in the floodgate, it poured into the world. Boom! With the light group in the depths of the sea as the center, 2 huge forces collided violently. Chapter 188. Wow! The sea rolled back and the world shook. The light group kept beating. The chaos and the mighty force of the earth collided violently, and the grand force roared the whole ocean. The aftermath of the aftermath instantly rippled the quiet seabed. The crust was broken, and the angry waves surged. Looking at this terrifying scene, Sarasia, who was firmly bound by the chains of light, turned pale and said embarrassingly, "I just said don't touch it." She was whispering, and a shocking wave beat past. The graceful sea queen looked horrified. But at this moment, a dazzling light shrouded in front of her, blocking the monstrous tsunami. Apollo chuckled and looked at the power of chaos that was constantly pounding in front of him, and said indifferently, "Chaos, you will meet the needle and penetrate the power whenever you have the opportunity." He was whispering, and the beautiful and graceful sea queen over there suddenly stared at the constantly colliding power of chaos, his face lost for a moment. The blue eyes suddenly looked at the golden figure shrouded in the light, and murmured, "You are?" "Apollo." Apollo glanced at her. I saw that the sea queen's expression was full of confusion and struggle, as if there were two wills fighting in the brain. The eyes that looked at him were hostile and indifferent, but also surprised and respectful. "It seems that Pandora didn't lie to me. Destroying the core can eliminate Gaia's influence on the world and return everything to the past." The golden eyes blinked lightly, and Apollo sighed and stared at the violent confrontation between the power of chaos and the power of the earth. Under the impact of the two forces, the light group was completely shattered. But in the other 5 directions of the world, the continuous influx of great power from the earth has created an illusory light group in place. The broken gap was firmly filled, and it was difficult for the power of chaos to enter again. Looking at this scene, Apollo frowned slightly. The 6 world cores are one. Unless the 6 world cores are destroyed at the same time in a short period of time, or they will help each other and quickly complement themselves. After pondering for a moment, he said indifferently, "If this is the case, then I will destroy all of you." The ear of the world listened carefully, and he sensed where the cores of the other 5 realms were located. "There is one in Olympus and Hades, one in the depths of the earth, and one at the end of the sky. In addition to the ocean here, why can you only perceive 5? Thinking about it, Apollo came to Sarasia. The sea queen looked at him with a strange look at the moment, with a dazed fear, but also gratitude and obedience. Feeling the complexity of her heart, Apollo said lightly, "You should have remembered something in the past. Go and call me the gods who are still in the ocean, and I want them to submit to me." Hiho's face swelled and struggled, and pictures flashed in his mind. It seems that a long time ago, he knelt down in front of this golden figure. "Promise, I will make you king." She looked at herself in surprise, bewildered. After a long while, he raised his head, bit his lip, and said, "My head is very confused, but although I don't know what the picture is about, you are indeed qualified to lead the ocean with your strength." "Do you rule the ocean?" Apollo chuckled lightly, his golden eyes looking at the endless void, staring at the location of Olympus. Gently spreading his arms, he said lightly, "What I want is the whole world. Call the gods of the sea and prepare to kill Olympus with me." He issued an order. The graceful Hiho trembled, bowed his head, and nodded obediently. Watching her leave, Apollo opened the system map. "There are many treasure chests displayed on the vast ocean," he said softly. "This series of battles has almost consumed both the divine origin crystal and the heavenly origin crystal, and the attack on Olympus is afraid that it will be another fierce battle, so we have to prepare first." He looked at the depths of the earth. "Gaia, you should be preparing now. Concentrate your strength in one place, instead of letting me break them down individually." In a soft whisper, his figure disappeared into the quiet seabed. Deep in the dark earth, in the majestic temple, the rich woman in the long yellow dress looked coldly at the king of the gods with her head lowered, her gorgeous face showing chills. "Why do you still have the face to see me?" Jupiter clenched his palms, tried his best to hide the unwillingness on his face, and replied in a deep voice, "This failure is not my fault, but Apollo's strength is too much beyond estimation, and I have tried my best to fulfill your instructions, Mother Earth." Under the long yellow skirt, dark and rough tentacles, beating and winding, stretched across the whole world. In the gloomy and eerie, the rich woman said coldly, "His strength is indeed beyond estimation. Even Pontos was easily killed, but this is not an excuse for your incompetence." Jupiter's head was lowered, and he didn't dare to speak. Looking down at him expressionlessly, the rich woman showed anger mechanically, her voice sharp. "The core of the ocean has been destroyed. This is a severe situation that has never been seen before. He must know the secret of the core, and he will start destroying other cores next. We can't passively let him break down one by one. Only by concentrating all our forces and completely eliminating him can we end this crisis." Jupiter looked up at her. Are you going to do it yourself, Mother Earth? The rich woman in the long khaki dress shook her head. I am the key core of the 6 world cores, and there must be someone to maintain it at all times. Then are you planning to gather the other 4 guardians in one place? Jupiter exclaimed with some understanding of what she meant. The rich woman sighed. There are no guardians everywhere. You, goodly how, didn't find out that Pluto didn't come? Jupiter then said in surprise. Yeah, what is he thinking about? Is it possible that at this point he thinks he can protect himself alone? 35, don't worry about him. I'm not very clear about some of his secrets, but they have nothing to do with the current situation. The rich woman shook her head. Jupiter asked at this time. Then there is only the first god king who guards the end of the sky, and... The rich woman interrupted him. He who guards the last place is my last trump card. It is very important. This time only Uranus will help you. The location of this battle is at Olympus. Mother Earth, just based on the strength of me and the first generation of god kings, I'm afraid there is no absolute certainty. Jupiter looked anxious. In the dark palace, the corner of the rich woman's mouth evoked a smile. Don't worry, I have my own preparations. 39. Chapter 189. In the majestic temple of the gods gathered again. The burly Jupiter sat high on the throne, overlooking the gods below. The gods all bowed their heads and looked different. Most of them are a little careless, looking upwards from time to time, just like looking at an old man who is short on time. This kind of gaze made Jupiter very angry. He drank in a low voice, and his icy eyes glanced at the cheeks of each god. The hall became dead silent in an instant. Jupiter said indifferently, Apollo, the sin god, violated the laws of the divine court, killed many gods including my brother Neptune, and refused to accept the judgment of the goddess of justice. His sins are beyond forgiveness. But this sin god is so powerful that it cannot be taken lightly. Fortunately, my most honorable grandmother also deeply felt his sin and gave her will. As he spoke, he stood up from the throne and looked at the gods below. Mother Earth gave her will. The expressions of the gods couldn't help changing. Gaia, the mother of the earth, is the grandmother of the gods and the oldest and most powerful deity, the founder and true ruler of the entire pantheon. Was she surprised too? The bright armor, the tall and straight goddess of wisdom Minerva, the bright eyes are also solemn, full of worry. Having witnessed the defeat of the 3 kings, she had already given great confidence to Gene 353's younger brother who subverted the divine court's rule. But once Mother Earth intervenes, everything will no longer be under control. This grandmother of the gods is far from being comparable to the 3 kings. Ignoring the changes in the expressions of the gods below, Jupiter then declared, the mother-to-be convicts that the sinner will soon invade Olympus, so I have to make some arrangements in advance so that he will stay in Olympus forever. When he was talking, the sky in the distance suddenly filled with thick moisture. There seemed to be a surging torrent coming. The gods were startled and cast their gazes. I saw the periphery of Olympus, I do not know when surrounded by many blue gods, causing turbulent water, seems to drown this immortal mountain, the home of the gods. It is the gods of the ocean. Before the ocean was turbulent, many gods escaped, and then they all returned. Luo, now what are they going to do, flood Olympus? The gods frowned. At the top, Jupiter was already furious, holding up the lightning spear in his hand. Death to the offender. The dazzling thunder and lightning erupted violently from the burly body of the king of the gods, carrying the unparalleled destruction power, and quickly rushed out of Olympus and smashed into the endless water waves. At this moment, a splendid light flew out from the depths of the water stream, covering the void. The lightning, which symbolized the anger of the king of the gods, dimmed and extinguished in an instant. King of Olympus, don't be so stingy. You discussed how to hurt me behind your back, but I didn't get angry. My subordinates just drowned your spot and couldn't commit the electric shock. With a chuckle, the dazzling light spread like gold from the distance, bringing brilliance and warmth. The gods raised their eyes tightly and saw a handsome and elegant blonde boy walking out lazily in the bright sky, with a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. His body exudes charming splendor, and the fiery heat is full of warmth, just like the source of all light and heat, and the sun brings good hope to all beings. But this dazzling light and heat fell on Jupiter, but it was the coldest fear of death. The king of the gods clenched the lightning spear in his hand tightly. His body burst into a vast, imposing manner, and he drank coldly. Apollo, you really came to invade Olympus, but you don't know, this is destined to be the burial ground for you. Oh, Olympus feng shui is really good. If you want to choose a cemetery, I don't mind choosing this place. In the bright light, Apollo had a smile on his handsome face. A pair of golden eyes is the indifferent lock on the king of the gods holding a spear. But I feel that this place is more suitable for your burial. The king who rules the court of God, buried in the highest place in the world, can be considered as matching your identity. Jupiter's eyes froze. At this time, he heard a familiar and graceful voice from behind Apollo. God of light, you are wrong. Olympus is the highest place in the world, but he, the god king, has never really ruled the universe. What qualification does he have to defile the sanctity of Olympus with an ugly corpse? The gods stared sideways, and the one who came to Apollo and made this sound was the wife of the Dead Sea Emperor. Sarahia, Apollo killed your husband, and you chose to take refuge in him and defend the majesty of the court of God. You are so disappointing to me. 99 Jupiter stared coldly at Sarasia's graceful face, with bright electric lights flashing on her body, filled with waves of destruction. Feeling the terrifying electric light, Sarasia glanced at the golden figure beside her. Her eyes flashed in confusion, and finally, she firmly nibbled her rosy lips. Jupiter, this world needs to adapt to the development of the times, and your brutal rule over the gods should have ended long ago. Now that the light has come, the ocean has accepted his light, and today Olympus will also become a member of the kingdom of light. You, the king of defeat, are destined to become the afterglow of history and be nailed to the pillar of shame. 5 Following her voice, many of the ocean gods who had surrendered below waved their arms one by one and shouted, "The court of God is dead, and the light is given new life. Overthrow Jupiter and establish a new temple." The god of light promises that surrendering at this moment will preserve the god's position, and if he resists stubbornly, he will fly to ashes with everything in the past. A huge shout echoed up and down Olympus. Each of the gods looked at each other in dismay, and they were all a little moved. Although I don't know much about this blonde god outside, no matter how bad it is, it can't be more rubbish than the current god king, right? The strength of the opponent is obvious to all, and it is a strong person worthy of refuge. Now that the Olympus building will collapse, you and others cannot be buried with Jupiter. Just when they were still hesitating, Minerva, who was standing closest to Jupiter, suddenly turned into a rainbow light and flew out. Standing in the void, this graceful girl bowed slightly to the bright light. God of light, Minerva is willing to follow you and build a new temple. 99 Olympus was in an uproar. The daughter of the god king, and the most dazzling goddess of wisdom among the goddesses of Olympus, was the first to surrender? What are these people still hesitating about now? In the blink of an eye, nearly half of the many gods in Olympus flew out, and the other half are also just around the corner. Jupiter's face was ashen, a pair of eyes beat thousands of electric lights, and he stared at the bright-eyed girl who walked from the void to Apollo. Minerva, how dare you betray me? I swear, I will hang you and Apollo together at the highest point in the sky, and will forever be burned by the fire of God. Before he finished speaking, a magnificent light in the distance suddenly rushed into the sky. Boom! Only a loud noise was heard, and at the highest point of the vast sky, the ground cracked like a spider web, revealing countless dark gaps. In the bright light, Apollo said indifferently, "Jupiter, you can think of another place." Chapter 190. The gods of Olympus could not help but be dumbfounded as they looked at the cracked and pitch-black top of the sky. Jupiter, who was standing on the top of the mountain, was even more gloomy. He threatened to hang Apollo and Minerva on top of the sky. But at this moment, when Apollo waved his hand, it collapsed to the sky. God of sin, don't be rampant. The broken Gaudion will become the beginning of your downfall. The king of the gods clenched his teeth, staring at the cracked Guangtian with a ferocious gaze. Suddenly, a stalwart figure slowly emerged from the dark crack, a mighty coercion like the sky. covering the endless earth. Apollo's golden eyes looked up there as expected and said indifferently, "Uranos, you finally came out. The broken sky is illusory and invisible, and pieces are floating in the air. Thousands of tiny fragments, like flowers set off delicate robes, are intertwined on the curtain of the sky. Those dark cracks, like curved outlines, formed a distorted face. His eyes are gray, invisible and cold, overlooking everything, like the supreme king who dominates the universe. The dull and grand pressure made the entire Olympus fall into a dead silence. All the gods felt as if there were thick and heavy mountains pressing their backs from above, and the majestic weight made people breathless. Even Jupiter's face was full of solemnity at this moment. The pressure shrouded in the sky does not distinguish between enemy and me. Majestic and majestic like the vastness of the sky, the king of Olympus also felt heavy. Under the vast sky, there is only a golden figure shrouded in light, unaffected by this vast pressure. Bright golden eyes, calmly looking at the sky. Uranos, your strength has improved a lot compared to the past, and it is not much worse than Tartarus. 5. The figure is as vast as the sky, the gray and white vicissitudes of the first generation of God King. The twisted and cold face reveals a chill. No matter how much progress is made, Guangtian still cannot escape the shackles of the earth. Young gods, the sky that has lost its freedom will use bright blood to comfort its ferocious heart. Uranus laughed wildly. The laughter was full of pain and madness, like a curse, cursing all the living beings in the world. At the end of the laughter is the sound of death. The vast sky distorted and changed color, and pieces of invisible sky smashed down from the sky like meteorites, pointing directly at the bright light. How can the bounded Guangtian break the light? Let me end your pain. The golden eyes were lightly closed, and 36 pairs of splendid wings suddenly stretched out behind Apollo. Boom! The icy sky, the blazing light, and the extremely powerful two exploded in the endless void as soon as they collided. The grand picture, the fierce sound, just watching the battle, just listening, the gods below felt unprecedented horror. At the top of Olympus, Jupiter's hand clenched the lightning spear with trembling, his eyes fixed on the sky, but his steps did not dare to move. Gaia's low voice resounded in his mind. Don't be afraid. I will bless you with the status of a king. Your combat power will be comparable to the original. Assist Uranus and kill Apollo. 35. Before the words fell, an invisible vast force from all over the world, the beat chrysalis shrouded Jupiter's tall body. The momentum of the king of the gods skyrocketed in an instant. Just like a king who had wandered into the countryside, he returned to his palace and put on the golden crown again. This increased his confidence. The king of Olympus raised his spear aloft, and 1,000 lightning bolts stabbed at the bright figure in the sky. The blond boy, who was colliding violently with the invisible sky, glanced at the back indifferently. His splendid wings fluttered gently, and a magnificent light turned into a blazing pure white spear, pinned down. The king of the gods hurriedly waved his spear. Boom! The spears encircling the lightning, and the spears wrapped in light interweaved streaks of sparks in the air. Jupiter's figure was immediately blocked. In the sky, the distorted giant face of Uranos became more and more cold. A layer of sky curtains rolled over like a blanket, covering the vicinity of the brilliant light layer by layer. Perceiving the pressure coming from all directions, Apollo was silent, and 36 pairs of gorgeous wings burned to the extreme. The sacred, pure, and magnificent light spreads the vast sky like gold, like invisible giant hands, beating the sky. Boom, boom, boom. The light was turbulent, and the splendid torrent tore through the layers of the sky. For flowers. The invisible void shattered again and again. Uranus' face changed. He could perceive that Apollo's divine power was only at the original level. But when the 36 pairs of golden wings all vibrated and spread out, the mighty power emanating from the blazing light reached its original peak. The jump was so big that he couldn't believe it. Jupiter, restrain him. Uranus roared in a low voice, and layers of sky spread out on his body. The majestic and magnificent pressure, flashing and flashing, is like an invisible blade, cutting the light. Hearing his call, Jupiter's expression froze below. The glowing lightning is gorgeous to the extreme, hundreds of thousands of thick thunder, carrying the momentum of destruction, spreading the void like the tide, impacting brilliant light. Between the sky and the thunder, the whole world could not help shaking. But the surrounding light was unshakable. The splendid wings spread brilliantly. The pure and sacred light sets off the golden stalwart figure, and the infinite light and heat sway the world. Bring gifts to those who obey the light, and bring doomsday apocalypse to those who disobey the light. The burning bright fire, like a prairie, steamed into the void. As the surging mighty power raged, one after another of lightning was smashed and scattered. The king of the gods was in a state of embarrassment, and the spear in his hand shattered. He, who was endowed with primordial power by the Prince of Kings, was still too vain compared to the real primordial, and his combat power had to be discounted. And in the sky above, the drowsy twilight fell on the vast sky, and the loud horn was blown. The terrifying colors of war, famine, plague, and death complement each other, and the turbulent descends to the end of the sky. Aurena's gray-white figure suddenly became withered. The invisible vast sky, under the apocalypse of the apocalypse, looks bleak. At this moment, Olympus below suddenly trembled. This immortal mountain, the home of the gods, came to life in an instant under the horrified gazes of many gods. Born in the embrace of Mother Earth, he transformed into a majestic giant, waving his fistless fist, fiercely smashing at the golden figure in the light. Chapter 191. Boom. The muffled and loud noise was like a collapse of the sky, and the towering giant was transformed from the immortal mountain, stepping on the fertile land, causing the world to tremble. Rock-like rough complexion, revealing all the strength. His fists are also the color of the mountains. There was a roar in the void, and it shattered in front of the fist that was thrown. The huge fist is like the gathering of all the mountains in the world, and the momentum is unparalleled. Anything in front of it has only one ending. That's smashing through and through. But the light that fills the sky does not belong to this ranks. When the fist of the mountains that shatters all things hits hard on the blazing light, 36 pairs of stretched wings suddenly vibrated. A splendid brilliance, like a torrent, spreads all over the void. The boundless sky, 353, against the ground is brilliant. The torrents of light gathered together in the void, condensing into a huge golden fist. Boom. The golden fist of light was as fast as lightning, and it greeted the fist of the mountains. The grayish yellow of the mountains and the splendor of light collided violently in the broken void. The dark cracks spread like spider webs, and soon the entire sky over Olympus was full of darkness and dead silence. Punch to punch. The aftermath of terror wipes out all things. The gods turned pale, and all fled outside. There are only a few powerful gods who can maintain their composure, concentrating on this shocking battle situation from afar, and they are shocked by it. Puffy. A series of explosions echoed in the sky. When Apollo was dealing with the fist of the mountains swung from behind, Uranus, who was slumped under the apocalypse of the apocalypse, saw an opportunity. The primordial figure who was in charge of the sky instantly blurred, turning into a vast sky that expanded infinitely. The power of war, famine, plague, and death devoured most of the sky, but eventually allowed him to escape part of it. That part of Tianyu turned into a tall Uranus in the void, and the gray-white figure was full of sluggishness and weakness. He barely supported the sky, looked down at the rock giant who was constantly throwing punches and confronting the light, and squeezed a smile. Urea, cooperate with Jupiter to contain him, and I will attack on it. The giant nodded heavily. He is Uriah, lord of the mountains, and like the fate of the two brothers, he was also enslaved by Gaia after his death. Like Pontos, he is now the source of the mountains, the true origin of the mountains in the world. It is precisely because of this that he can take Olympus, the first sacred mountain in the world, as his body. He is the true guardian of the core of Olympus. In response to the words of his brother Uranus, he majestically waved his fist. The fists of gray-yellow mountains are like soaring mountain peaks, constantly bombarding the void, smashing everything, and confronting the light. On the other side, Jupiter, whose spear was broken, flashed lightning all over his body, and one after another, thick thunder roamed the void, carrying the power of divine punishment, and flanked the light. When the mountains and the thunder struck, the splendid light finally trembled. And in the sky, the pale Uranos once again transformed into thousands of heavens, and the invisible vast sky surged out. The three primordial forces attacked the light in all directions. The majestic pressure caused the splendid light to shake. The three primordial powers are indeed quite good. But this lineup is still not enough in front of me. Gaia. The golden eyes suddenly turned cold, and the 36 pairs of gorgeous wings behind Apollo vibrated at an extreme speed, and the endless stream of bright torrents slammed into the sky. Bang, bang, bang. Under the sound of a series of explosions, thousands of Tianyu collapsed and burst. Uranos' face was pale, and he was seriously injured, and his breath became more and more sluggish at this moment. But the first-generation god king did not retreat but advanced and roared, "Uriah, Jupiter, hold him and leave me alone." 39. Hearing Uranus' words, Uriah and Jupiter hurriedly urged the mountains and lightning to attack from below and from the side. Wow! The void was crushed by the turbulent mighty force like a stream of water. Uriah and Jupiter bombarded with all their strength, and the thick and bright color gradually dimmed. But Apollo's face was always calm. The golden eyes were indifferently locked on where Uranos was, and the boots under his feet suddenly flashed a stream of light. Well, the pale-faced first-generation god king narrowed his eyes. His inner intuition made him feel a crisis of death. Looking back suddenly, the light in the sky has disappeared in front of you, a heavy twilight, carrying the doomsday apocalypse of war, famine, plague, and death. Behind him surged. How could it be so fast? Uranos looked shocked. He was the original god. His perception spread all over the world, and he was extremely keen. What kind of speed can surpass the limit of one's own induction and appear from the front to the back in an instant? He didn't have time to think about it. The horn of doom had already sounded, and the heavy twilight icy covered him. The vast sky suddenly turned gray. Terrifying forces such as war, famine, plague, and death are also surging in the sky. Uranus' tall body withered all of a sudden. The power is depleting, the spirit body is wilting. One after another, the black flowers of death, blooming brightly, surrounded his body and spirit with a fragrant fragrance. The picture in front of him is blurred. In a trance, the king who once ended ignorance and created a divine court had memories of the past in his mind. The faces of the two brothers Pontos and Uriah, the appearance of the 12 children, and the fertile woman who was both wife and mother. Gaia, the sky will eventually collapse. How long can your earth support it? With a miserable smile on the corner of his mouth, Uranos struggled to mobilize the last strength, and a vast sky surged into the sky. But the deep twilight soon dyed it. The color of death makes it dark and collapses. Brother, 4.4-inch Uriah yelled in pain. Different from the later 12 titans and the Zeus brothers, the three brothers of the god king of the first generation of the gods may also have discord with each other, but they all support each other and have a strong relationship. Watching the elder brother slowly fall before his eyes, the Lord of the Mountains went mad. He waved his fist violently, and the mountains violently smashed into the light, and the world was shaking. But this couldn't stop the dark flower of death from blooming in Uranus. The bright fragrance has long filled the air, and the immortal sky will eventually decay. In the golden light, Apollo's splendid wings spread even more sacred and majestic. Only a rumbling sound was heard, and the sky covering the boundless earth burst into tears of grief. The tall figure of Uranus died on the top of the void like a bubble. Chapter 192. Brother, looking at the body of Uranus that turned into foam, Uranos howled in rage, and the huge body swayed, shaking in all directions. On the other hand, Jupiter was trembling with fear, and the light on his body was dim. The first-generation god king Uranos, who was not weak even in the original realm, actually fell like this? Terrible, terrifying. Staring at the golden figure standing indifferently above, the palm of the king of the gods could not help trembling. At this point Uriah, recovering from his grief, yelled at him, "Kill him with me." 35 The Lord of the Mountains swung his fists, and the fist marks were like mountains, violently bombarding the sky where the light was. The majestic power shatters the void and shatters everything. But in front of the infinite light and heat, it all seemed insignificant. No matter how tall the mountain is, it is not as high as the sky, and the sky is about to overturn before me, let alone you, the smallest mountain. 39 The radiance shone brightly, and Apollo looked indifferent. 36 pairs of splendid wings stretched out and vibrated, and the sacred light turned into an illusory spear, piercing and shattering mountain peaks and 31 huge rocks. Bang, bang, bang. The torrent of light was unstoppable, and despite the wave of Uriah's fist and palms, the mountains stood out, and they were still just tiny mud balls, unable to stop the anger. With a loud sound, Uriah's tall body transformed from Olympus slowly appeared cracks. Magnificent light, carrying majestic power, bombarded the majestic mountain. Pieces of the rock were shot down, and the walls were split. Uriah hurriedly shouted, "Jupiter, hold him back." Unexpectedly, he turned his head and saw that Jupiter had turned into a lightning bolt and rushed into the sky at an unknown time. Uriah was furious, staring at Jupiter's fleeing back with round eyes, and had the urge to swallow him alive. Apollo in the sky sighed for him. Last time in front of me, he could even give up his own brother. How about you? But it doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense to kill him now. He has already forgotten everything about the past, so he is so confused, a little too cheap for him. Saying so, Apollo raised his palm, and once again descended a brilliant light. The magnificent and splendid power of light, like an invisible giant fist, bombarded Uriah's rough and huge body. Uriah screamed, and her body collapsed. A loud bang echoed in the sky, and the gods watching the battle from afar were all unmoved, with complicated eyes. Uriah's body at the moment is their former homeland, Olympus at the center of the universe. This sacred mountain, which is considered to be immortal, is now broken into pieces. The emperor of the sea is dead, the king of Pluto is missing, and the king of God has fled. Now that even Olympus has collapsed, is it true that the divine court that rules the universe has to change its dynasty? 99 Although it had been anticipated before, the gods of Olympus were still very much in their hearts at this moment. The end of an era is too heavy and too sad. The fierce battle situation did not change in the slightest because of the complexity of their hearts. The splendid golden torrent continued to dissolve the huge body of Uriah. The Lord of the Mountains struggled, but to no avail. Finally, a light group of indescribable color appeared on the top of Uriah's broken head, flashing thick waves. Uriah's expression changed, and he hurriedly stood up to protect the light group. But Apollo was far faster than him in the sky. The golden boots flickered, and a splendid figure appeared in front of the light group. A mighty force blasted out coldly. The beating light group trembled, only to hear a loud noise and burst into thousands of pieces. No. 35 Uriah roared loudly, and the terrifying force was powerfully attacking where Apollo was. But it is completely difficult to break through the brilliant rays of light despite the impact of the mountains. With the explosion of the light group, the entire world instantly turned into a majestic chaos. The sky, the earth, the sea, and the underworld are shaking. At the same time, the deep power of the earth emerged from the depths of the earth, unifying the power of the entire world and confronting the power of chaos. Apollo's golden eyes flickered, staring at these two vast forces. 36 pairs of wings behind him burned brilliantly at the same time, and the magnificent light continued to disintegrate Uriah's tall body. But at this moment, a sudden change occurred in Uriah. Dark tentacles like roots and vines drilled out from under his feet like a poisonous snake on the ground. In the blink of an eye, although the Lord of the Mountains shattered more than half, it was still a huge and majestic body, completely covered by tentacles. These countless treacherous tentacles, intertwined with each other, actually outlined thousands of glamorous and cold human faces, twisting and floating outside the thick body of Uriah. Apollo, being able to kill Uranus and the others so quickly, your strength is beyond my expectations. But you are still too tender compared to me, who controls the world. The ultimate move I prepared for you was never Uranos, Jupiter, and the others. A gloomy and sinister smile appeared on the beautiful faces. Suddenly, the dark tentacles that drilled out from the ground and wrapped around Uriah's body quickly spread to the depths of the sky. Apollo's figure flashed, but he found that he didn't know when. There were also many dark tentacles drilled out, connected with the tentacles that spread and firmly bound him. It's the blood of this body. The golden eyes closed lightly, and Apollo understood. His current body is made of broken and reorganized original body, and his bloodline is derived from Gaia. Anyone who bears my blood cannot escape the fate of being enslaved by me. Apollo, return to the embrace of the earth. 35 The deep voice echoed in the depths of the light, like a kind mother who was looking forward to her children and grandchildren returning home. A root of dark tentacles, constantly pulling and shrinking. Uriah's huge body 353 burst suddenly, and the aftermath of terror formed a huge pothole on the ground. Those twisted and beautiful faces spread out outside and inside the dark pit. They all looked at Apollo, who was gradually pulled into the hole with a smirk. At this moment, their expressions suddenly changed. The 36 pairs of splendid wings behind Apollo ignited a splendid flame of light again. The magnificent light, with blazing heat, ignited the tentacles and illuminated the dark pits. Under the shroud of brilliant light, the blond boy was bathed in sacredness and purity, baptizing all filth. Those beautiful faces could not help screaming, and they all began to smoke in the twist, as if a filthy evil had met the sun. Standing bright, Apollo said indifferently, "The imprisonment of blood, how can it taint the sacred body of light?" Saying so, his golden eyes looked into the depths of the dark cave and stared at the majestic temple. I also saw the beautiful face of the rich woman with dark tentacles sitting high on the throne. Gaia, since your incarnation has come out, let's end it all at once. By the way, the sky has overturned, and the earth will eventually sink. The fall of heaven and earth is the beginning of a new era. Chapter 193. Ho 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 ho. In the dark and majestic temple, the rich and beautiful woman in the long yellow dress burst into laughter. The faces that were smoking black in the bright light were also more and more distorted at the same time. The earth is me, the sky is me, all the gods are born because of me. I am the world, I am all living beings. Who can overturn the sky, and who can make the earth fall? The cold and low voice echoed in the dark pit, and the dark tentacles under the long khaki skirt continued to spread. Like the roots of a plant, like the thick black wool of a huge black goat. The rich and glamorous woman, full of chills, condensed the bright light, and the white cheeks were very ferocious. Apollo, you are also a descendant of my blood. Your body, your spirit, the world you live in, the air you breathe, all these originate from me. Why? You just don't want to return to my arms and be a good child. Ho 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 ho. The icy grin, like bursts of babble, echoed harshly in the dark world, like long and thin needles, drilling into Apollo's ears and spirit body. Surrounded by splendid light, Apollo's golden eyes suddenly closed. The divine aura erupted spontaneously, and under the pure brilliance, it dispelled all evil and filth. A great and magnificent, like the kingdom of light, descended into the world, covering the entire dark underground in an instant. Those human faces babbled loudly, as if ice met a raging flame, melting and evaporating in an instant. Standing within the light, the figure of Apollo is sacred. Staring at the rich woman sitting at the top of the temple from afar, he said indifferently, "Gaia, the world was not conceived by you, long before ignorance. There were many primordials that together formed the world. Although the ultra-primitive era has perished, it does not mean that they did not exist." Speaking of this, a sneer suddenly flashed across his face. Furthermore, now you, is the mother of the earth in the past, or the supreme goddess of the foreign land? The icy voice made the beautiful cheeks of the rich woman froze, and she seemed to have a lot of doubts. But immediately that white and cold cheeks, there was a monstrous chill. I have always been myself, the ancestor of the gods and the mother of all things. In this world and in that world, all of you should be my heirs, with my brand running in your blood, when eternity is my servant, a part of me. 35 boom. A loud bang echoed suddenly. Thousands of dark tentacles crazily drilled out from under her khaki-long skirt, spreading densely to infinity. In an instant, under the light that was no longer dark, countless tentacles like tree roots gathered. They are like vicious and vicious snakes, hissing teeth from thousands of different corners, biting fiercely towards the light. These tentacles, mixed with the power of the earth, are even more treacherous than before. Under the divine light, it is already difficult to disperse. They gnawed on the splendid light like poisonous snakes, and the rustling voice was inexplicable. Apollo looked indifferent, and his golden eyes glanced at the countless tentacles that completely surrounded the periphery of the light. Gaia, do you only have the same trick? No matter how many changes, it is still the same superficial appearance. 55 with a faint sneer, the splendid wings spread out, and the pair of splendid wings vibrated and rolled up, and the splendid light began to expand like a burning flame. Infinite light and heat swayed the darkness, and the blazing mighty force stretched like a knife, slicing the dark tentacles. Bang, bang, bang. The huge roar shook all directions and continued. Straws of light collided with tentacles constantly, like long whips whipping each other, and the sound of the collision was like a boulder shattering. The magnificent light dispelled the darkness, and the golden figure gradually approached the majestic temple. The rich woman standing on the throne, her glamorous cheeks finally flashed solemnly. She gave a low snort, like the great will of the world's master, and instantly drove the boundless earth to rumble. The dark and dark pits closed in an instant, and the layers of ground were rolled and aggregated, covering the splendid approaching light in all directions. The dense power of the earth emerged in thousands of different directions, squeezing infinite light and heat like a cage. And the dark tentacles are hidden in the rich soil of the earth, and they stretch out from time to time to strike the light. Just when the rich woman had a satisfied smile on her mouth, an incomparably majestic and vast expanse of light and heat, like an exploding sun, rumbled and raged. One after another flaming beams of light protruded from the periphery of the kingdom of light, like fists sticking out. Boom! Wu Chu's fists smashed the surrounding soil, burning the tentacles that invaded. The surging mighty power was hard to contain, and in the violent surge, the power of the infinite earth was shattered. Countless gods and mortal beings in the outside world were shocked to discover that the vast earth was constantly shaking. It seems that there are fists one by one in the depths of the ground, constantly bombarding, shaking the bottom of the world. At the same time, it is accompanied by a gentle light, which emerges from the cracks in the earth and nourishes the vast world. Puffy. A series of explosions echoed the dark formation. The blazing light carries the divine will and penetrates every corner of the ground unstoppably. The majestic light and heat poured into the void, illuminating the majestic earth temple. It also illuminated the rich woman sitting on the throne in the temple. Her glamorous cheeks were mechanically filled with anger and horror, and her eyes filled with chills stared at the golden figure that was approaching and had already arrived at the gate of the temple. The white palms clenched tightly, and the rich woman suddenly looked behind her. Goodly how, that is a strange light group that is far larger than the ocean and Olympus. It keeps beating in places where there is no light, exuding a strong atmosphere of the earth. At this moment, as the power of light approached, it seemed to sense a crisis and jumped restlessly. A deep chaotic force is infiltrating it with joy. No, this boundary core is the most important. If it is destroyed, the main body must separate its power to maintain the stability of the world, so as not to be infiltrated by chaos. But now the main body does not have an advantage in the battle situation in the chaos. If the power is divided, it will definitely fall into the disadvantage. Damn, no matter here or in the chaos. Why is he getting stronger and stronger? Feeling the magnificent light that had already invaded outside, the rich woman bit her lip, as if she had made up her mind. Chapter 194 The Sword That Pierced the World. Subscribe. Apollo was slowly approaching, and suddenly felt an overwhelming pressure. I saw that on the throne of the majestic temple, the rich woman looked at the back of the world with her beautiful cheeks, and cried out, "Supreme Mother Goddess, help me." 35 cents its call. In the chaos outside the world, In the rich mother river that is constantly entangled with the power of chaos, the black female goat made up of pieces of sarcoid-like flesh let out a treacherous laughter. One after another, the dark tentacles like tree roots firmly bind the back of the vast world. The long river of abundance, which contains symbols of abundance, source, mother, etc., is surging with waves. As the waves hit, the mighty power that rolled into the sky penetrated from the back of the world, and the power of the earth opened a channel there. In the depths of the majestic chaos, chaos roared, and the power of chaos wanted to follow. But the power of the earth completely blocked his power. Nourished by the power of the supreme mother goddess, the abundance of women in the majestic temple skyrocketed in an instant. Countless dark tentacles were intertwined, and at the same time, the mighty force of the earth roared in response. Two majestic forces converged to form a rough and huge pitch-black giant tree. This giant tree grew rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, it broke through the layers of soil and shot straight into the sky. Apollo, as I said, this world belongs to me. The rich woman roared fiercely, and her figure took the world core 353 and completely merged into the pitch-black giant tree. In an instant, the giant tree grew faster and faster. The trunk, branches, and roots are spreading everywhere, under the horrified eyes of all the creatures in the world. In the shattered Olympus, the crater, the majestic tree pierced to the top of the sky. The huge tree body is far bigger than the original Olympus mountain. The huge tree canopy stretched out, covering most of the sky. The roots and branches of the trees stretched out like tentacles, sweeping the whole world. The peaks were pulled up, and the fruits were hung on the branches of the giant tree, which was spectacular. But all living beings, whether they are mortals or gods, have no mood to appreciate this spectacle at all, just because the majestic giant tree is still growing. The thick and long tree roots stretched for thousands of miles, completely penetrated the entire earth, and even spread to the bottom of the ocean. And the vast tree canopy, after covering half of the sky, is still expanding, as if to completely cover the entire world under the shade of the tree. The earth and abundance are intertwined with the most terrifying vitality. And the end of life is death, it is destruction. The majestic, DB, tree, covering the whole world, is like the great net of fate, firmly grasping every life that is shrouded in her shade. Apollo, can you defeat me like this? In the majestic giant tree, the icy, sly smile of the rich woman came. Beneath her tree roots, a ray of golden light is constantly being released. A glorious torrent is magnificent and sacred, and it stretches into an endless void. I am the source of light, and the light of the world is born from me. The grand sound resounded, and the light that spread throughout every corner of the world that was not shrouded in darkness was boiling and restless. A touch of gold turned into a sharp arrow, shooting overwhelmingly at the towering giant tree that stood in most of the world. Boom, boom. Countless arrows of light, with fierceness and fury, shot on the surface of the majestic giant tree like a hurricane. Every time the light hits the rough bark, it will explode in an instant. Blazing power raged all over the giant tree, and soon the giant tree that stood for most of the world was full of potholes. But the icy laughter of the rich woman in the depths of the giant tree continued. Apollo, are you tickling me? On the back of the world, the plentiful mother river was turbulent, and its infinite might poured into the depths of the earth, nourishing the roots of the giant tree and replenishing her strength. It didn't take long for the damage caused by the countless arrows of light to be repaired as before, and the majestic canopy is still expanding, almost completely covering the entire sky. The peaks of the mountains were pulled up and suspended by her hanging branches, whistling and shaking in the air. While Apollo was concentrating, the countless branches swept over, wrapping around the steep peaks, swiftly as lightning. Like a thick and heavy long whip, it beat the world fiercely. Countless peaks are just small rocks tied to the whip's head. The branches were whipped, the void shattered and trembled, and countless cracks spread in darkness. Bang, bang, bang. With a series of loud noises, the countless branches were smashed, and the light in the sky was crumbling. Thousands of mountain peaks, which were bound together, collapsed and shattered in the collision. But soon there were countless branches dragging the steep mountains. As if endless, Apollo could only spread out 36 pairs of splendid wings with all his strength to resist the offensive. Humph, how long can you support? 99 in the towering giant tree, the rich woman sneered. As the incarnation of Mother Earth, she is the top primordial in this world. At this moment, there is the blessing of the rich Mother River, and the power is endless. Unless it is the real supreme being born, no one can do anything to her at all. Apollo also admitted this. You are indeed invincible now. But as soon as he finished speaking, a calm smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. But you have Feng Mu as foreign aid, and I also have another me. Suddenly, in the chaos outside the world, another golden figure was fighting with the rich and beautiful woman who surrounded the earth, and his eyes flashed lightly. Stars glittered on his body, holding a golden book in one hand, and lightly holding a red burning rust sword in the other. Suddenly, a colorless giant eye appeared above his head. The moment this giant eye appeared, whether it was time or space, it seemed to freeze. It sprayed out an invisible beam of light, hitting the rich and beautiful woman in front of her who exuded the breath of the earth. The woman's movements suddenly froze. At this moment, the golden figure looked towards the passage where the rich Mother River poured into the back of the world. He suddenly threw the mottled rust sword in his hand. Boom! The red rust sword surged and destroyed waves, swiftly like a meteor. In an instant, it penetrated the layers of chaos and went straight into the rich Mother River. This long Mother River was cut off in an instant, and the monstrous flames filled the air. At the same time, the burning mottled rust sword passed through the passage on the back of the world and rumbled into the depths of the earth. The splendid firelight spread directly from the ground, and in the turbulent spread of destruction, the roots of the majestic giant tree were ignited. The sharp rust sword did not stagnate. From the root of the ground, it rushes upwards along the veins. Soon it pierced through the trunk and through the trunk. From the towering giant tree that enveloped the world, there was a loud rumbling sound, and the rich woman screamed. The monstrous fire spread from the ground, all the way to the canopy. In the end, a blazing mottled sword light drilled out from the crown of the tree that stood against the sky, reflecting the vast sky. A sword pierced through the ground from the back of the earth to the top of the sky. Penetrate the whole world. Chapter 195. Impossible, it's impossible. In the world of fire, the beautiful figure of the rich woman is looming, whispering softly in the ashes. The towering giant tree that covered most of the world, the roots were completely engulfed in the sea of fire. The long roots were ignited, and they burned out one by one in the red fire. The thick trunk, and the huge canopy that almost completely covered the sky were all split in half by the burning mottled rust sword. The majestic giant tree fell with a bang. In midair, the blazing fire that destroyed everything gradually engulfed them. Branches, trunks, crowns, all burned with fire. In the shocked eyes of many gods and mortals, it quickly turned to ashes. Everything is lit. Only the rich woman was left sitting in the countless ashes, holding the light ball in her arms, looking at a loss. The burning mottled rust sword wandered in the sky, and finally slowly landed on Apollo's right palm. Surrounded by brilliant light, the blond boy held the rusty sword and walked towards her step by step. At this moment, the rich woman in the ashes, her long yellow dress suddenly bulged, her plump and white arms stretched out high, and she let out a shrill roar. Apollo, I haven't lost yet. Tentacles crazily drilled out from under her skirt, dark, rough, and long, swarming the vast land. And at the back of the world, the rich Mother River that was cut off by the burning sword, the river surged, extinguishing the flames burning there. Waves of waves surged, and this treacherous river flowed rapidly again, and the meandering river water poured into the passageway at the back of the world, connecting with those ignited tree roots. The pale face of the rich woman turned ruddy in an instant, and the earth and the rich aura were rich and thick. In the splendid light, Apollo's golden eyes stared at her indifferently. I still want to resist, but you have no chance. Suddenly, the golden figure fighting with Gaia's real body in the endless chaos, the invisible giant eye above his head shot out rays of light again. Time and space are frozen, and everything is distorted. The plentiful river water that poured into the world suddenly reversed, and all of them retreated from this world. Apollo, what are you? In the chaos, Gaia's real body screamed. Even her supreme being, under this eye, actually felt something called terror. Opposite her, the group of stars intertwined into the universe, the splendid figure holding the bright golden book, with a smile on the corner of his mouth. It's called the Eternal Eye. Suddenly, this invisible giant eye spanned the distance of time and space, passed through layers of chaos, and flew into the interior of the world from the channel on the back of the world. Gaia tried to stop it, but was completely blocked by the universe of stars. In the other two places in chaos, Pallas and Nyx looked at the invisible giant eye, and their faces were full of solemn whispers. This is a supreme artifact. Boom. The invisible giant eye quickly flew into the interior of the world. Its surrounding is full of rich, eternal brilliance, indescribable great colors. Every beat is like the breath of the universe, the pulse of the world. Its existence seems to transcend time and space. The fate cannot be included, and the world cannot carry it. Everything in front of it can be modified and usurped at will. Just after passing through the world channel, it emits eternal brilliance. The channel connecting the world and the chaos outside is closed, and the rich mother river can no longer enter. It floats to the ground, and the invisible light shines. The tentacles that were like roots and vines seemed to be frozen in an instant, and then shattered into countless powders like glass. In the blink of an eye, it rushed out of the ground. The invisible great light reflects the vast world. The pieces of tree trunks, branches, and crowns that had been ignited and dropped were also solidified. It is then crushed into a powder like ice cubes or glass. Whether it is the collapsed giant tree or the blazing flame, under its eternal light, they all disappear into nothingness in an instant. The rich woman in the long khaki dress sat blankly in the pothole on the ground, holding the light ball in her arms and staring at the giant eyes. The glamorous cheeks are full of disbelief. And after the giant eye had wiped away the last trace of the giant tree, it quietly flew to the sky above the bright light, wrapping around the head of the blond boy who stretched 36 pairs of gorgeous wings. Staring at it a few times, Apollo's heart is also full of solemnity. This eye of eternity was opened from the super god treasure box that was picked up when it first broke into the Gaia Earth Temple. Because of the series of battles with Gaia after that, his real body finally found a gap in the chaos to open the treasure chest. In addition to the hundreds of Tianyuan crystals, there were a total of 2 items in the Super God treasure box, both of which were marked as 4-star. The Eternal Eye is one of them. It transcends time and space, has the terrifying ability to modify reality and reverse all things, and is a truly supreme artifact. Of course, to exert its full power, the consumption required is also enormous. Even if he is in chaos, the etheric body becomes a universe by itself, and he cannot use it for a long time. Otherwise, with another thing in the super god treasure chest, Gaia's body could have been directly overthrown long ago. It is also thanks to Gaia that you opened the world channel, otherwise it will not be easy to send it in. With this Eternal Eye, I can do something. Chaos, it is not my style to help you regain the world for nothing. He whispered in his heart, Apollo's eternal eye on top of his head, holding a flaming sword. 36 pairs of splendid wings were flaming, and the incomparable aura was sacred and supreme, approaching the rich woman step by step. Looking at her indifferently, Apollo swung his flaming sword. A blazing sword light with the power of destruction rumbled on the light ball that was beating in her arms. Boom! The whole world shook, and the turbulent chaotic power penetrated everywhere in the world. In the chaos, Gaia's body, who was originally fighting with the golden figure, changed wildly in an instant, and a majestic force of the earth poured out from his body, pouring into the world behind him. Looking at her movements, the golden silhouette of the stars intertwined in the vast universe also stopped and did not stop it. Take the opportunity to restore the divine power that was lost too much due to the use of the Eye of Eternity. The 4-star supreme artifact has great power, and the consumption is really terrifying. With the return of the power of Gaia's body, the chaotic power of the riots in the world was suppressed again. Looking at the gradually calming world, with the eye of eternity above his head, Apollo said indifferently, "Even if you can maintain it now, when I destroy the 6 cores at the same time, can you still support it?" The rich woman in the long khaki dress looked at him and said coldly, "You can't do it. Even if you destroy the other 5 cores, you can't find the 6th core. Even if you find it, you can't get past the terror that is guarding it and destroy it." "Yes, then I want to see what the guardian of the 6th core is." The golden eyes were lightly closed, and the ancient waves in Apollo's eyes were unhappy. Suddenly, he raised the flaming sword and stabbed heavily into the body of the rich woman. The blazing flame ignited her instantly. In the red flames, this beautiful and rich woman screamed shrill and madly and issued a vicious curse, until completely reduced to ashes. After ending her, looking at the devastated world, Apollo couldn't help but let out a sigh. His expression immediately became sacred and solemn. The destruction of the old is the beginning of a new era. I will build a new home for the gods on this ruin. Create a new divine court. Chuan. Da. Chapter 196. After the war, the gods suddenly looked at the ruins of Olympus. The original immortal mountain in the center of the universe has now completely collapsed. Pieces of debris scattered across the vast land. There is also a large pit on the ground that leads directly to the ground, which is dark and deep. The fire of the Star Wars is still burning fiercely, dazzling the devastated ruins. Numerous gods looked at the ruins in a complicated way, silent for a long time. Finally, he cast his eyes to the sky at the same time, that was surrounded by brilliant light, a beautiful and elegant divine figure. In the crowd, Venus was flawless and full of joy. She was wearing a pure white silk robe, standing demurely and gracefully among the many gods, her beautiful eyes staring at the golden figure above. Those golden eyes also glanced at her, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. At this time, Minerva in a military uniform flew out, and the heroic goddess of wisdom, 353, came to the sky with a smile on her face. "Respected god of light, Minerva greets you on behalf of the gods." Before reaching Apollo, she first bowed and bowed. The gods below also hurriedly lowered their heads. Apollo chuckled lightly. Why should the goddess of wisdom be polite? Only then did Minerva lift her cheeks, and replied with radiant glory, "Respected god of light, although I am your elder sister in blood. But now you have smashed the old rotten court, and thousands of gods have become the new king of gods for you. You are the strongest among the gods, and also the most holy. In the face of such greatness, any god must bend his knees and pay homage to the great king of the gods." Minerva's quiet voice echoed in the ears of thousands of gods, and the gods who lowered their heads immediately responded. "The great god of light, who sweeps away the old and rotten sacredness, please accept my worship. Be crowned king on this old ruin. Lead us to build a new divine court, and create a glorious and beautiful new era." The gods knelt down together and said in unison. In the bright light, Apollo looked down at the gods kneeling on the ruins and said solemnly, "I already understand what you mean. The coronation is not in a hurry. The old corruption still exists. When I completely clear the universe, it will be the opening of the new divine court. Follow your will, great king of the gods." Minerva responded loudly, her drooping cheeks full of loyalty and obedience. Apollo couldn't help but glance at her, and he didn't believe that this goddess of wisdom was such a diehard fan. However, with her taking the lead, many gods immediately learned to look like they were, and they followed suit. Apollo looked at the ruins with amusement. To accept worship in this devastated place, his 4 generations of god-kings are too miserable. Thinking like this, he thought. The colorless, eternal eye emerged from the top of his head. The great aura that transcended time and space instantly made the hearts of the gods below jump, and they looked in awe at the young god-king who was shrouded in brilliant light. Suddenly, the eye of eternity shot out a ray of light. Under the surprised gaze of the gods, the ruined Olympus suddenly trembled. Pieces of gravel quickly gathered together and quickly condensed into the shape of a majestic mountain on the ground and in the air. Sacred brilliance shrouded the sky above, and clouds and mists surged around this giant mountain, and the mountain peaks were like an ethereal realm. The smooth rocks soon grew tender grasses and flowers, and even lush ancient trees, with wild deer and rabbits jumping among them. At this time, many majestic temples also rose up suddenly, standing majestically around the sacred mountain, in good order. The gods are in a trance. How is all this so similar to the previous Olympus? However, it seems to be more magnificent than the original Olympus, and the towering mountain is full of grandeur. Ignoring them, Apollo shot out a ray of light from the eternal eye above his head again, raising this new mountain several times higher, surrounded by a strong, fresh breath. The top of the sacred mountain reaches directly to the boundless starry sky, and the sun, moon, and stars all surround it below it. Only then did Apollo put away the eye of eternity with satisfaction and took a breath. The power of this four-star artifact is really powerful, but the consumption is terrifying. His original primary divine power could only sustain a dozen breaths. After recovering a bit, he turned his back to the gods and said softly, "This looks much more comfortable, and this sacred mountain will be the new home of the gods in the future. You can adapt to each of you according to your original divine position." 35 The gods were still staring blankly at this sacred mountain, which was far more majestic than the previous Olympus. Looking at the golden back in the sky in shock, his eyes could not help but be full of admiration and respect. He is obviously just a very thin and handsome young man. Why is he so majestic and holy that he cannot look directly at him? Great King of the gods, praise your great power and obey your supreme will. The gods praised in unison. When they all left, watching their new home curiously, Minerva, who was wearing bright armor, then restrained her loyal obedience with her beautiful cheeks and walked to the golden figure standing on the top of the mountain with a small smile. "My blonde brother, everything you do during this time is so shocking to me," she said with admiration. Apollo turned to look at her and chuckled. "Just now I took a mouthful of a god king, and now my mouth is full of little brother. I kind of want to punish you for the crime of disrespect, so that you know what it means to accompany the king is like accompany the tiger and leopard." Minerva gave him a quiet glance. Only then did Apollo get serious and suddenly asked, "How much do you remember about the past?" 99 He knew that with every time he destroyed the core of the world, Gaia's imprisonment on the memory of the gods would be turbulent, and the present was intertwined with the past. Suratia is an example. The stronger the strength and the deeper the wisdom of the gods, the greater the possibility of recovering some memories. And the goddess of wisdom in front of her is undoubtedly in line with the two, and no god dares to say that she is wiser than her. And her strength is also the leader of the gods. The graceful young girl suddenly fell silent. Staring at the majestic mountain below, she said calmly after a long while, "4.4 flashed some very familiar images in my mind. It seems that we did have a relationship, and you were my brother at that time." "Huh, don't just remember this." Apollo smiled and looked up and down her graceful figure. "You also promised me that as long as I became the king of gods, you would marry me, and now is the time for you to fulfill your promise." 99 The bright-eyed girl's white and flawless cheeks froze in shock. She stared at him for a long time and regained her usual calm wisdom. "If I have said this, I will do it when I think of it. But I don't think I may ever remember, Your Majesty the God King." 99 She lowered her body and saluted the blonde figure. Looking down at her bright face, Apollo said in a low voice, "I will make you all completely recall the past. It is not far from that day." Chapter 197 Your Majesty the Great God King, we have caught a person, and we don't know what to do with it. Minerva was about to leave the top of the mountain when he saw several gods holding a familiar figure in front of Apollo. Her white cheeks couldn't help being stunned. That was the former goddess Juno. "You rebels, let me go." The past god queen, who was tightly bound, struggled with a hiss, and her voice was sharp and full of viciousness. She looked very embarrassed, but her glamorous face was still raised high, full of resentment and anger, and she stared fiercely at the few gods who brought her. At the same time, with more malicious eyes, he focused on the golden sacred figure above. Apollo also turned to look at her and chuckled softly. The gods said, "She was banned from divine power before, and she was guarded behind the temple of the king." Later, Olympus shattered and the temple of the god king collapsed, and it flew out. We just found her outside. Apollo nodded. Before he could speak, Juno roared angrily. You rebels, there is only one king of the gods, and that is my husband. Apollo, Minerva, when my husband returns, you will all be dealt with the harshest. Then I'm looking forward to it. 35 Apollo smiled faintly and looked at the gods. Take her down and lock her up. Wait for my sister to come over and let her deal with it. 95 Let go of me, Apollo. You have the guts to kill me now. Juno shouted bitterly, but was firmly held down by several gods and dragged down. Looking at the way she left, Minerva sighed with bright eyes. The old times are buried after all, and the new temple will have a new look. 99 Staring into the sky, Apollo nodded. At this time, Minerva lightly blinked and said, You just said to leave it to your sister. Are you referring to me? 55 Obviously not. Apollo smiled and stared at the bottom of the majestic mountain. There was a graceful woman with bright silver hair, carrying a bow and arrow, and was surrounded by many gods. Minerva followed his gaze, pursed her lips, and said, Sure enough, it's still a relative from a compatriot. 35 I once promised her that I would leave the original queen of Olympus at her disposal. Apollo said sternly, The original god queen. Have you thought about the new god queen? The bright-eyed girl suddenly asked. In my mind, there was never only one choice. The blond boy's voice was calm in the shimmering light. And on the mountainside of the majestic mountain, the silver-haired girl who was carrying silver bows and arrows, walking with joy, also seemed to have a feeling. Holding her fair and beautiful face, she quietly and elegantly looked at the gentle golden figure in the distance, with a smile on the corner of her mouth. Looking at the two people looking at each other, the bright-eyed girl in bright armor couldn't help but feel a little tasteful in her heart, and Ying saluted. My esteemed god king, I will not disturb you, and the hunting goddess said to go down from the top of the mountain. When she was halfway, she happened to meet the silver-haired girl who was oncoming. The cold-looking girl with a silver bow and arrow on her back showed her a smile. Is it the goddess of wisdom? I have often seen you in my mind recently. You are really a wise, beautiful, pure, and powerful goddess. Minerva was startled by the girl's sincere compliment, and after a while, her unique bright smile appeared. It's a coincidence that you have often appeared in my mind recently. You are always so brave, strong, beautiful, and beautiful. The two beautiful girls praised each other right in front of the mountaintop and chatted for a long time. Apollo, who looked at the top, had a toothache. When I didn't have amnesia before, I never saw their relationship so harmonious. Now, one by one, I recall how close and caring sisters looked like in the past. When Minerva finally left, the silver-haired Diana looked at the familiar golden figure above and quickly approached. After a while, the girl's figure became even more tall and straight. Against the backdrop of the silver-white short skirt, it is beautiful and elegant, exuding a natural fragrance from afar. Sister, you came so fast. He approached her in a low voice. Looking at the handsome face as before, the silver-haired girl said seriously, I am very worried about you during this time, but I am also afraid that someone will use it against you. So although I miss you very much, but I never took the initiative to find you, but now I don't need to worry anymore. She stretched out her slender palm and caressed that gentle and handsome cheek. My brother, you must be very tired during this time? 35. I'm always tired after a fight, but luckily I'm never alone. Apollo looked at her softly. I always have my sister behind you. 35. The silver-haired girl's cheeks flushed, and she suddenly said with confusion, I recently recalled a lot of images about us, and those scenes were so real, as if they had really happened. 39. Or maybe that's our shared past. Apollo approached her softly. Well, there are also you in there, and they are all beautiful. 99. The silver-haired girl nodded, not too entangled. For her, it was enough to look at her brother well. But some pictures in those memories are really embarrassing. The blush on the girl's cheeks suddenly increased again. Apollo approached her with a smile and asked in a low voice, I don't know if that scene was included in the picture my sister remembered. Which scene? The silver-haired girl asked weakly, her face deepening. That was the scene where I asked under the laurel tree in my temple about the question of my becoming the king of the gods, the queen of the gods. 5 Apollo said very seriously. The girl's beautiful cheeks instantly flushed like a burning cloud, and she turned to stare at the sky for a long time. Apollo was not in a hurry and walked slowly forward. Don't rush to answer. I've been waiting for this answer for a long time. The day I get your reply is the day when the new god king and god queen of Olympus are coronated together. In the bright light, the blonde boy silently overlooked the boundless world. Chapter 198. In the dead and dark space, Apollo looked at the light group that kept jumping in front of him. The mottled rust sword burning in his hand pierced gently, and the whole world couldn't help shaking under the blazing brilliance. The majestic power of chaos looked for opportunities and began to suppress the mighty power of the earth. But the body of Gaia in chaos is not to be outdone. Unite with the power of the supreme mother goddess to fight the invasion of chaos. Apollo, even if you destroy the 5 cores, as long as the 6th core remains, the world will still be mine. 99 in the chaos, the rich and beautiful Mother Earth said coldly. Opposite her, it is the golden figure intertwined with the stars, holding the book of light. Therefore, her words did not fall into place, and fell into the lifeless dark space, beside Apollo, who was holding the burning sword. Shrouded in brilliant light, he slowly put away the blazing divine sword in his hand. With golden eyes, he looked at this dead stillness of the underworld, his expression unchanged. Stare at the chaotic power and the great power of the earth that are constantly impacting because of the broken core of the world. Surrounded by splendid light, an invisible giant eye appeared on the top of his head, and the eternal eye spurted out a great brilliance, illuminating the 2 shocking forces. Time and space froze in an instant, and the rules, and even the root cause shook, as if a mass of data was being forcibly modified. The 4-star supreme artifact, the Eye of Eternity, transcends time and space, tampering with all things. While panting to maintain the eternal eye, Apollo quickly raised his palm and painted strange runes in the void in front of him. This rune looks very obscure, and it is impossible to say what words or symbols it is, but just by looking at it from the outside, you can feel the awe-inspiring sense of holiness. As if to probe, it would be blasphemy. With the movements of Apollo's fingertips, runes were drawn and written. They are intertwined, exuding illusory light and shadow, like an ancient contract written on parchment. The moment they took shape, they quickly merged into the chaos and the impact of the earth under the brilliance of the eternal eye. Following their veins, the power of the eternal eye helps this illusory rune contract to flow into the deepest part of the world. That's where the roots come together. Vaguely, Apollo saw 6 spots of light, supporting the frame of the world, but 5 of them were very dim. It's really 6 cores. Where is the 6th one? Slightly puzzled, Apollo hurriedly activated the Eye of Eternity. With the power of this 4-star supreme artifact, the illusory rune contract is completely integrated into the deepest part of the world where the roots meet. In an instant, a magnificent breath of greatness emanated from the parchment-like illusory rune. The divine aura in Apollo's body also resonated. It's like signing some supreme contract with the world itself. Feeling this breath, Apollo put away the Eye of Eternity and let out a long breath. Wiping the sweat on his forehead, he said, "Finally, the 5th covenant contract has been completed." The covenant deed is another thing he got outside the eternal eye from the super god treasure chest in the Temple of the Earth Mother. The same system marks 4 stars. This is both an artifact and a divine art. Its only function is to contract, forge the most sacred and most binding covenant. And the 6 cores are the 6 cores of the world. After learning of the existence of these 6 places, Apollo had an idea. He wants to make a covenant with the whole world with the covenant of the covenant. After destroying Gaia's power of the earth, he replaced Gaia and competed with chaos to become the ruler of the world. It is not easy to complete this plan. Although the covenant of the covenant is a 4-star thing, it is impossible to make a contract with the complete and vast world if it is displayed with a non-supreme body. But the existence of the eternal eye makes all this possible. This 4-star supreme artifact has the ability to modify all things and can change the will of the root cause, allowing them to take the initiative to accept this contract. In addition, when the boundary core is broken, The power of chaos and the mighty force of the earth collide with each other, so there is an opportunity. Since the reconstruction of Olympus, Apollo has walked between the earth and the sea, destroying the other four cores and forging contracts respectively. Finally reached the underworld. After completing this fifth contract, he is only one step away from completely imprinting his will into the depths of the world. Where will the last sixth core be located? Apollo was lost in thought. During this time, he has also been looking for the location of the sixth realm core. But this final core, as if it had never existed, even if the ear of the world could not find the slightest trace of it. If it were not for the mutual integration of the cores of the realm, there would have been its power when the radiance was reflected. In addition, when the covenant of the covenant was formulated, the source of induction was always the six cores. He suspected that the so-called sixth realm core did not exist at all. And according to the incarnation of Gaia, the guardian of the sixth realm core is an extremely terrifying existence, and at least it must be the top-level primordial. Spirits of this level should not appear and disappear for no reason. After searching for a long time, Apollo finally locked a person. The second-generation god King Saturn. Most of the gods in the Roman pantheon created by Gaia correspond to the original Greek gods one by one. The second-generation god king, here, should correspond to Kronos. But Cronus fell into the abyss and was led by Tartarus to fight in the chaos. Therefore, this second-generation god king of the Roman god system cannot be transformed by Cronus at all, and the various performances of this Saturn are completely different from Kronos. Apollo asked many gods and found that his vocation was actually related to the earth and abundance, as well as some dark attributes. Also considered the dark side of the sun. He is the most likely candidate to be the nuclear guardian of the sixth realm. But Apollo couldn't find him at all. As long as it exists, it will definitely leave traces. If you look for me slowly, you will eventually be found. Apollo, goodly how, looked indifferent, not in a hurry. Then he suddenly remembered. I came to the underworld. Pluto, the underworld king, has long since run away. Speaking of which, Hades also had a lot of secrets, and now he can be arrested and explored. After saying this, he added, and Jupiter, since he has become the previous god king, he should be brought back and dealt with. 35 Apollo took out the ear of the world and began to investigate the whereabouts of Jupiter and Pluto. During this time, I was busy signing the covenant of the covenant, and I forgot that these two people should settle accounts after the autumn. Under the investigation of the ear of the world, Apollo's face suddenly changed. It's not that the two Jupiters were not found, but that he found another harvest. It's the hanged man. What is he doing? Wait, that figure. I understand, where the so-called sixth realm core is and its guardian. He is boasted. Chapter 199. With the blessing of the ear of the world, Apollo sees the tall figure hanging upside down in the heavy curtain, dark and degenerate. He was walking cautiously in the blazing darkness. Darkness and fiery. These two words should not appear together. Generally speaking, darkness symbolizes gloom and coldness, while blazing represents flame, light, etc. But what appeared in front of the hanged man at the moment was a huge black sun. The dark flame is like the body hair of a terrifying monster, fluffy, cold and fiery intertwined, and it is sinister. And in the black sun, surrounded by thousands of fluffy hairs like flames, there was a terrifying shadow. It was a living creature, entrenched on the back of the sun. It is impossible to describe his appearance, because it has surpassed the imagination of mortals. If an ordinary mortal sees him, at first glance, his spirit body will shatter, and he will go crazy and die. Because of the mortal soul level, there is simply no way to withstand such a level of terror. Just look at it, and it breaks down. Of course, Apollo was not a mortal, so he saw the appearance of that terrifying existence. If I had to use words to describe it, the figure was a bit like a piece of meat that was constantly wriggling, covered with pitch-black fluffy hair. This is not what he really looks like. Just as the original God has transcended the level of matter and energy and is an abstract concept. The so-called external divine body 353 is only an insignificant part of the vast real body to the existence above the original. Just like when Apollo was a mortal named Qin Qing, the four-dimensional creatures and five-dimensional creatures imagined by scientists on the blue planet. Zero dimension is a point, one dimension is a line, two dimension is a surface, and three dimension is a body. Humans are three-dimensional creatures living in four-dimensional space. If you look at them in three-dimensional space, you can only see one side of him, which is a picture, a piece of paper. And looking at human beings in higher dimensions, the same is true. It's a worm crawling and wriggling under the timeline. Because of the lack of senses, mortals can only look at a very small side of the truly great existence. This is precisely what protects them. The human mind is limited. They can't imagine the miracle of a triangle whose three angles do not add up to 180 degrees, a cat that is both alive and dead, and who creates a stone that he cannot lift. Because this is in their thinking, which is against logic. What they don't know is that the logic they hold as truth is also created by a greater being, and it is a yardstick for all things to measure themselves. But it cannot limit the great itself. Thinking has limits. Don't think that you can do everything in fantasy. If they encounter an existence beyond logic and common sense, they only need a look, and their thinking will collapse, falling into the eternal tangle of spear and shield, and completely collapse. A spear capable of piercing all shields, a shield capable of blocking all sharp spears. What happens when the two collide? There is no way to get an answer to this in common sense logic. Because if the spear is broken or the shield is broken, it will never meet the definition of the sharpest and the strongest. If it is unscathed, it will also not meet the definition. It's a paradox that never has an answer. If you look at this mass of flesh wriggling on the back of the sun, you will see countless answers to these questions, and then fall into perpetual incomprehension and collapse. This is what he really means by the name terror. Ugly and ferocious are not terrible, but the unimaginable unknown is the most terrifying. This figure is such an existence, which is intertwined with countless paradoxes and anti-logics. His existence is the greatest irony of the common sense in the world. He who is entrenched in the back of the sun and dyes the fiery black. It is like a black hole abyss that will never go out, constantly swallowing everything in the outside world. Whether it is matter or energy, time or space, tangible things or abstract concepts. In front of him, all things like food were chewed and swallowed. But he actually had no mouth and no teeth. Walking in front of him step by step, the tall figure hanging upside down in the dark curtain called out his name. The creeping devourer, it really is you. In the dark, sun, the wriggling flesh suddenly made a sound. In fact, he does not have a sound organ, and he does not need to use the vibration of the air to transmit information, but pure spiritual power. If mortal objects or low-level gods appear here, they will only feel countless babblings in their ears, and their spirits will collapse. But the hanged man certainly understood what he meant. The servant of the former master of the star realm, you are not qualified to ask me about my affairs. 99 The hanged man sneered. Back then, when you outer gods were embarrassed and expelled into the depths of the universe under the glory of the Lord, you weren't so arrogant. In front of the omniscient and almighty, we are naturally just humble bugs. But without the blessing of his glory, you are not qualified to let me face it. 35 Humph. How can you be greater than me? Not just a pawn driven by the supreme mother goddess. She asked you to sneak into this world, and you stayed here for countless years. But during this period, a god king who had been incarnated for a while came, and you had to be overthrown according to the established script. The voice of the hanged man was ironic. As the head of the three pillars of the universe, the first king of angels under the seat of the omniscient and almighty who is in charge of the astral world. Although he knew that the one in front of him was also one of the most terrifying among the foreign gods, he had no fear. In the past, even their leader, the supreme goddess who reproduced thousands of descendants. Under the divine light that sprinkled the universe all over, they all fled, shrank, and crawled. As the left hand of God, he believed that unless the supreme mother goddess, the status of other outer gods could not be compared with him at all. Arrogant fool. If you didn't have the aura of the primordial sea on your body, I would definitely swallow you and let you be with the eternal darkness. The shadow entrenched in the sun is mentally fluctuating, revealing an emotion similar to anger. Because he noticed that the arrogant worm in front of him came with a tail. Boom. The dark sun shook suddenly, and bursts of death-colored flames sprayed the void. In the flesh where the fluffy hair like flames gathered, it seemed like a pair of eyes appeared, staring into the depths of the underworld. Blonde bug, you are the goddess who is the enemy of the mother goddess collaborator. Since you peeped into my existence, the only destiny you have left is to be swallowed into your body by me and become a part of me. The muffled voice, carrying a majestic spiritual shock, slammed across the far distance of space, raging towards where Apollo was. In the depths of the underworld, the splendid figure bathed in light suddenly snorted softly. The splendid light pervades the sacred grand momentum, annihilating this spiritual shock. At the same time, the golden boots under his feet flickered, and in an instant, he crossed the border between reality and fantasy and came to the back of the sun. Chapter 200. In the dark space, blazing flames burned violently. The black sun hangs high, and in the thousands of curtains, the fallen figure hangs upside down, with a look of horror on his face. Looking at the rear rather ugly, the dazzling light covered the blonde boy who didn't know when to appear. You came with me. It's impossible. The hanged man gritted his teeth, unwilling to believe that his whereabouts were completely under control. He came here to use the power of the wriggling devourer to fight against Apollo. But it was tracked back here by the other party. This made him unacceptable. Apollo didn't care about the thoughts of the hanged man. He looked indifferently at the sky above the back of the sun, all kinds of contradictions and paradoxes intertwined, the indescribable wriggling flesh. You are the wriggling devourer among the many outer gods in the foreign land. You are ordered by the Supreme Mother God to guard the sixth realm core for Gaia. Under the shroud of divine brilliance, Apollo's voice was magnificent. The piece of flesh entrenched on the back of the sun suddenly trembled. A pair of dark rays of light similar to eyes appeared on his surface, and strong mental fluctuations came from his voice. Blonde deity, your breath makes me hate it. Let me recall back then, the astral master who drove us to the depths of the universe, but you are far less powerful than him. You are right. I was invited by the mother god to come to help the guy named Gaia. You are her enemy. Since you appear in front of me, then become one with me. Boom. The pitch-black sun shook suddenly, and countless cold and fiery dark flames spread turbulently, forming a storm, rushing towards the place where the bright light stood. It seems that the sixth core is indeed with you, which is great. The golden eyes were as bright as fire, and 36 pairs of gorgeous wings were suddenly spread out behind Apollo, and the infinite light was like a burning flame, blazing out continuously. Bang! Light and darkness clashed at the extreme, and flames collided with flames. The violent waves are like a wave of destruction, destroying all things in the void. The hanged man looked horrified, and hurriedly attracted the boundless ocean where illusion and reality were intertwined. Light and darkness were one, to protect himself. The two forces that collided were too vast. Even if he is an almost original powerhouse, if he is accidentally swept away by the aftermath, he will be hurt. Fortunately, I have part of the power of the original seed. He was a little fortunate in his heart. At the same time, with a hee-hee smile, his dark pupils stared at the two figures who were facing each other in coldness, feeling excited. He came here to fight Apollo with the wriggling devourer. Although it is not in line with the plan, the purpose has been achieved. Fight it. It's better to fight to lose both. In the dark curtain, he was full of malice. Suddenly, a blazing light swept over his head. Laugh. Layers of dark curtains are all broken. Blazing light and mighty power purify corruption, annihilate darkness, and ignite the original ocean. Magnificent power, unstoppable. The hanged man was horrified, and hurriedly pulled the power of the original sea to fight against this blazing light. Fighting against me. You still have the energy to distract others. How arrogant. In the pitch-black sun, the creeping devourer felt insulted, and the fluffy dark hair like flames trembled like tentacles. The black piece of meat was like a heart or pulse beating, and it made a muffled and treacherous sound. Under this voice, the boundless void all around began to tremble, shattering every inch. Like encountering something that is completely contrary to common sense and illogical, which makes itself completely contradictory and leads to collapse. I am the embodiment of chaos and disorder, the destination of death and darkness, the paradoxical master who devours all things. Deep spiritual might, with irresistible tones of terror. In an instant, it erupted from the back of the sun and instantly spread across the whole world. Countless gods and mortals looked to the sky in horror. I don't know when, the golden sun, which symbolizes hope and beauty, has become as dark as night. An incomparably terrifying great figure, entrenched in the sun, with dark eyes overlooking the boundless earth. His muffled voice was like thousands of leather drums, thousands of conch shells, and thousands of bone flutes, all playing together. It is the sound of indescribable terror. On the vast land, all mortals, beasts, and even plants heard this voice and saw this terrifying figure. All trembling madly. All life is collapsing, whether wise or not. Not only life, but also the wind floating freely around the world, the misty clouds soaring in the blue sky, and the mountains and rocks that stand erect. These dead things also began to tremble, falling into endless contradictions and paradoxes, and it was difficult to maintain their own existence. Even the gods, except for a few powerful main gods, most of the ordinary gods have their heads dizzy at the moment, staring at the terrifying figure entrenched in the sun. Their faces are full of madness. What is this? Minerva and other powerful main gods maintain their own reason with divinity, but they are also reluctant. They stared at the sky unimaginably. Looking directly at the terrifying figure entrenched in the sun, they saw too many things that could not be described with common sense. Countless paradoxes that contradict themselves and violate logic, one by one, are presented in front of their eyes. This is disastrous. Their cognition, their worldview, and their hearts are cracked open after cracks. Like a sturdy house, if its foundation is broken, it will soon be broken. This kind of horror is completely beyond imagination. Even in the face of the powerful primordial god, Minerva dared to say that he had the courage to wield a spear and compete with him for life and death. But at this moment, seeing this terrifying monster that is completely contrary to common sense, she knows that she has absolutely no chance to fight against him. Her proud wisdom is also based on truth and logic. But for this terrifying monster, truth is false, logic is a lie, and his existence is subverting all of this. When the creeping devourer fully revealed his true body, the whole world was dead silent. All the beings on the earth stared, their heads exploded, lost their breath of life in a frenzy, and fell to the ground. What a fragile life! Just looking at the insignificant surface of my great body, I can't bear it. The muffled voice echoed in the world, and the dark eyes of the squirming devourer showed profound contempt and indifference. Just by letting the world see his true body, he killed all life in this world except for a few powerful gods. Flowers, there is no need to issue any power as long as it exists. It is the greatest destruction to mortals. I finally understand why that the fool wants to prevent you from coming to his planet. Perhaps you outer gods don't even bother to destroy humble mortals, but as long as you appear in their world, it is enough to destroy everything. In the bright light, Apollo let out a faint sigh. The gods of the Greek world, even if they are supreme, can completely restrain their own greatness, and their performance is in line with common sense and logic. But the alien gods, they themselves are a combination of contradictions and anti-logic, and their existence is irrational. In addition to beings with powerful divinity, any ordinary mortal beings will collapse and die as long as they see their insignificant tip of the iceberg. This is probably the reason why Gaia has never used him before. As long as he appears in this world, it is enough to bring about a catastrophic end. And the world is still very important to Gaia. But now Gaia's real body is trapped outside, and the incarnation is also destroyed. This is an outer god from a foreign land, and obviously doesn't care about her thoughts. He chose to appear directly in his true body. He doesn't care what the world will be like. Even the Supreme Mother Goddess is only the head of the outer gods. Although it has certain binding force on the other outer gods, it does not mean that many outer gods completely obey her. Not to mention the mere Gaia. No matter what the Supreme, every outer god is also higher than the original, infinitely close to the Supreme. Go into my stomach. Since I came into this world, I haven't eaten for too long. Right now I just want to have a good meal." The creeping devourer made a muffled sound, and the pitch-black sun plunged the world into complete darkness. At this moment, a splendid light suddenly rolled up. A golden sun stood in front of his dark sun. Since it is an unreasonable existence, it should not appear in this world. 95 The sound was magnificent, and Apollo looked down upon the earth below, which was completely engulfed in death. Under the cover of divine light, an invisible giant eye appeared above his head. Eternal brilliance shone on the earth in an instant, against the monstrous darkness. Under the light of this eternal light, all life that madly died by looking directly at the creeping devourer. Whether it is ordinary gods, mortals, beasts, or plants, they all regain their vitality and come back to life in an instant. They stood up blankly and stared at the sky in amazement. There is one black and one gold, and the two suns are violently colliding. The black sun exudes a terrifying wave of destruction, ravaging the entire world. But all of this is completely beyond the reach of the golden sun. Standing on the golden sun is a stalwart sacred figure. He is the greatest who dominates all, and the most holy who protects all things. Feeling the magnificent light like heat, all the mortals and gods could not help kneeling and worshipping, and spontaneously recited an honorable name. The great God of light, you are the embodiment of all the beauty of the vast universe, and you are the God who dominates the gods. Your light shines on the world. You are the most holy of all the greats. You are the greatest of all the holy ones. 35. Chapter 201. In the prayers of thousands of mortals and gods, the black sun and the golden sun collided with each other. The blazing power interweaves the sky, and the aftermath spreads into the void like a stream of aftermath. Hearing the prayers of the many reanimated bugs below, the creeping devourer roared furiously. His terrifying figure flashed in the black sun, and blazing flames swept the world. Each one is hot and cold, and the contradiction goes against common sense, making everything that comes in contact with it shattered and collapsed. Standing bright and bright, 36 pairs of gorgeous wings spread. Apollo's golden eyes are like the scorching sun, and the endless flames of light ignite the void. The pure bright power swept the world, suppressing the black flames. The horn of the doomsday apocalypse sounded, and the twilight fell dimly. The mighty forces of war, famine, plague, and death were combined into one, and the terrifying figure in the black sun was violently impacted. The god of 353 hair, you have some skills, but this level can't help the great me. The huge mental fluctuations of the creeping devourer completely made a sound, and I saw his terrifying figure swaying in the black sun. In the dark and fluffy hair, in an instant, countless huge, pitch-black mouths opened and sucked at the surroundings. Whether it is tangible matter, energy, or abstract and intangible things or concepts such as space and time, they are all sucked into its mouth like food at this moment. War, famine, plague, and death were intertwined, and the deep and powerful evening power, as soon as it reached his body, was all absorbed into his huge mouths and devoured roughly. His dark eye showed an expression of enjoyment. It's been a long time since I ate something so delicious, blonde god. Come again. 99 Feeling the provocative taste coming from his spiritual fluctuations, Apollo, who stood bright and bright, looked grim. A flaming mottled rust sword suddenly appeared in his palm. Boom, boom, boom. One after another, the red sword light, carrying the earth-shattering power of destruction, transcended time and space, and slammed down around the black sun like a shower. The dark eyes of the creeping devourer are still indifferent. Very strong smell of destruction should be a good food. He opened his hideous giant mouths again, sucking everything in the void. The fiery red sword energy that fell across his body over time and space was swallowed up in the blink of an eye. There were a lot of tongues sticking out of those huge mouths, as if they were still unfinished. What a horrible monster. At the edge of the battle, the hanged man, who used the original sea to protect himself, was full of solemnity. The power of the outer god, the creeping devourer, is beyond his estimation. According to this world, the offensive launched by Apollo just now is probably no less than the original top. But in front of him, it was like a stone falling into the sea, and there was no waves at all. This was the power of the outer god. The hanged man sighed inwardly. Every outer god is rampant in the universe and can be called the ultimate terror of the doomsday natural disaster. Their existence itself is unreasonable, and it is the representative of destruction and disaster. Above the primordial origin of this world, infinitely close to the highest, counting the two worlds over and over, only his omniscient and omnipotent Lord can defeat them with his own power. Such magnificent pictures are destined to be engraved in historical monuments forever. He couldn't help but think of the battle he had witnessed when he was the left hand of God and the deputy sovereign of the kingdom of heaven in the past. At this moment, the golden figure surrounded by bright light in the sky suddenly laughed lightly. Concentrating on the terrifying figure entrenched in the black sun, Apollo looked indifferent. It's no wonder that Gaia is so reassured at the sixth core. Your strength is indeed called the strongest, even if the real supreme is difficult to win easily. It's a pity that you encountered me. The invisible giant eyes filled with eternal brilliance suddenly flew up and covered the black sun. Time and space were stagnant at this moment, and everything was modified and usurped by a great will. Creeping Devourer's dark eyes suddenly changed, trying to make some responses. However, he found that the instructions that the will wanted to convey were completely unable to reach all parts of the body. It's like it's frozen in place. This is impossible. Time and space are just my ingredients. What can freeze me? This powerful outer god roared inwardly. As the creeping devourer was frozen by the eye of eternity, Apollo violently stabbed the burning sword in his hand. Boom! The fiery red sword light burst into waves of destruction in the midair, splendid and flamboyant to the extreme. Violent force raged on the black sun. Thousands of mortals and gods on the earth are watching together. The sun, which was as dark as death, shattered into pieces in the sky. At the same time, the whole world could not help shaking violently. Gaia, the mother of the earth and the chaos, roared with sadness and anger on her beautiful cheeks. And the endless chaotic mighty power broke through many obstacles in an instant and descended into the vast world. That black sun is the so-called sixth realm nucleus, hidden behind the sun. With its destruction, the mighty power of the earth that enveloped the world began to fade away. The faces of many gods were dazed, and familiar memories of the past flashed in their minds. The mighty power of chaos has come to this world again. Eternal Eye. Apollo's golden eyes were cold, and he manipulated the eye of eternity again, urging the eternal light to illuminate the creeping devourer. This mighty outer god, whose fluffy-haired body seemed to be cut by a sharp blade, appeared one after another with in-death marks. He cried out in pain and roared, devouring the surroundings one by one with huge mouths. But the brilliance of the eternal eye is like the most blazing fire and the most severe ice. Just by touching, all of his giant mouths are either set on fire or frozen. The majestic force knocked him out, and Apollo quickly came to the place where the sixth core was broken and stretched out his fingertips. Numerous illusory runes were written and appeared, forming a parchment-like sacred contract, which was sent into the depths of the world under the brilliance of the eternal eye. This is, seeing the illusory runes and the parchment-like pact that emerged, the squiggly devourer and the hanged man in the distance were filled with 4.4 horror. Especially the creeping devourer, this powerful outer god, like a mortal who has seen a ghost, his two dark eyes slid and turned. He, who was originally aggressive, suddenly shouted to somewhere in the void, "Dimension Watcher, take me back. I don't want to stay here anymore." Apollo was a little surprised. I saw that with the cries of the squirming devourer, a blue illusory figure suddenly appeared in the depths of the void, opening a gap in the depths of time and space. "The Mother God made you here." The figure wanted to say something. However, the creeping devourer did not turn his head and directly squeezed into the gap. The huge, terrifying figure quickly disappeared. Chapter 202. The sudden action of the creeping devourer made people a little puzzled. But Apollo was no longer in the mood to pay attention to him. With the collapse of the sixth core, the endless chaotic power poured into the world from outside. The originally majestic and endless power of the earth disappeared suddenly. In the deep chaos, the proud voice of chaos came out. "Gaia, No matter how many calculations you make, in the end, you won't need me to take action, and you will succeed, haha. Damn, Apollo, you damn it. 99. The beautiful and rich Gaia in the long yellow dress roared in anger in the endless chaos, and the mighty power of the earth poured out continuously towards the splendid figure holding the golden book in front of him. But with the loss of the world and the gods, her supreme personality continued to fall, and her power was seriously lost. The majestic power of the bombardment could not shake the stalwart figure surrounded by the stars on the opposite side. Gaia, you have already lost. No one cares about the barking of a loser. Surrounded by thousands of stars, the vast starry sky interweaves the outline of the human-shaped universe, and the light of the bright golden book in Apollo's hands blooms to the extreme. The surging majestic power ripped apart the mighty power of Gaia. Bang, bang, bang. 31. In just a split second, the intertwined silhouette of the galaxy swiped thousands of vast fist marks. The chaotic void collapsed and shattered, and the irresistible majestic force smashed Gaia's fertile figure heavily. This very gorgeous grandmother of the gods, drenched in blood and chaos, staggered and fell to the periphery of the world. With her trauma, chaos became more and more excited. A steady stream of chaotic power pours out the boundless world, and wants to completely regain the world and the gods that belong to him. Right here, as Gaia returned to Apollo at the periphery of the world, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. The galaxy swayed, the universe flashed, and his paintings burst into the interior of the world in an instant. Merge with the other self holding the burning sword in the sky. Boom. The two sources of light merged, and the infinite light and heat suddenly swept the whole world. Staring at the sacred and great figure above, thousands of gods and mortals, kneeling and praying at the same time, cry the name of the holiest of all the greats, the greatest of all the holy ones. Not good. They, the hanged man, wrapped in the ocean of illusion and reality, felt the magnificent power at the highest point of the sky, and his expression was horrified. It quickly turned into a dark beam and rushed into the sky. Well, I want to run away. Seemingly aware of his escape, the golden eyes flashed with a cold light in the bright light, and the flaming sword in his hand suddenly threw out. Laugh. The reddish-mottled rust sword, carrying unparalleled destructive power, swept across the void like a meteor and was heavily nailed into the chest of the hanged man. The splendid flame ignited in his chest, and the scorching heat made him let out a wailing. But he is worthy of the head of the king of angels, and Rao is still struggling to stimulate the power of the primitive sea, struggling to escape. Forever, he gave it to you. In the splendid light, Apollo suddenly separated the body of the sun and threw him to the place where the hanged man fled. At the same time, his golden eyes stared indifferently at all parts of the world, constantly oppressing the chaotic mighty power of the earth. A quaint parchment scroll suddenly appeared in the palm of the hand, with many mysterious runes on it, and the writing was sacred and solemn. This is the real covenant of the covenant. It is not only a powerful divine art, but also a 4-star supreme artifact. When it emerged from Apollo's palm, the boundless world ravaged by chaos and the mighty power of the earth suddenly reappeared with a majestic tremor. Chaos and Gaia's expressions changed at the same time. I saw the depths of the vast world, and the roots began to tremble. Pieces of ancient parchment full of mysterious runes appeared on them, magnificent, bright, sacred, and solemn, resonating with the covenant contract held by Apollo in the outside world. The splendid power of light on Apollo was immediately pulled into the depths of the world, appears next to chaos and the power of the earth in the ultimate confrontation. 3 majestic forces collided and impacted in the deepest part of the world. In the chaos, Chaos was very angry. Junior gods, you are courting death. He thought that as long as Gaia was resolved, he would be able to regain his world and pantheon. But I didn't expect that at this critical moment, Apollo would actually intervene again. This is my world, my pantheon, you thieves. Chaos' mighty power is like a stormy ocean, surging in layers, showing Chaos' anger at the moment. Chaos, you are the biggest thief, and today I will take everything I have from you. Pallas, who had been hiding in a corner of Chaos, suddenly appeared. He seemed to have made up his mind, and an incomparably stalwart aura erupted from his body, rushing into the deepest part of the chaos. There, the real body of chaos has been entrenched. Even though Gaia competed with him for the world, he never got up, as if he was guarding and suppressing something more important than his world and pantheon. And as Pallas burst out with all his strength, the things that were suppressed in the depths began to shake. The invisible great power is stirring up the chaotic void. In the hazy light and shadow, the two lion heads and bull heads shrouded in great aura, as if revolving around the cosmic placenta. Thick chaos firmly suppressed them. But with the arrival of Pallas, a human head appeared among them. The three heads seemed to form some kind of complete divine greatness, and suddenly an unimaginable and magnificent power erupted. The boundless chaos seemed to be unable to suppress them any longer, and the rumblings shook unceasingly. "It's you." In the deepest part of the chaos let out an incredible roar. It was like seeing something that I never wanted to see again, but it was the existence that appeared in front of him. In an instant, the entire chaos void rioted. The boundless chaotic might. The swarms gather where chaos's true body is. He completely gave up everything else, condensed all the supreme power, and rumbled to suppress the three surrounding heads. Good chance. Gaia's eyes lit up at the periphery of the world. She thought she had no hope, but at this moment, chaos contracted his strength. As long as she can overwhelm Apollo, she can regain control of the world. "Supreme Mother Goddess, help me," she cried out to the fertile mother river flowing in the chaos. Unexpectedly, before her voice fell, an eternal brilliance suddenly shot out from the world, solidifying time and space, and modifying all things. Surrounded by splendid light, the stalwart figure of Apollo held the covenant deed in his hand, and the eternal eye above his head appeared indifferently in front of her. "Gaia, you have no chance." Chapter 203. Apollo. In the secluded chaos, looking at the golden figure that appeared in front of him, Gaia's glamorous eyes almost burst into flames. Her resentment, Apollo, was not happy to ignore it. The eternal eye hung above his head, holding the covenant pact, and he stretched out 36 pairs of gorgeous wings behind his back. The magnificent light was like a raging fire, and it spread to her. "It's not enough to make me admit defeat." Gaia roared wildly, and the strong earth power poured out from her plump body, forming walls of earth and chaos. Bang! The loud noise shook the sky, and the chaos shook. The splendid light, like a prairie fire, is like a sharp spear. The high wall of the earth, in front of it, was as inferior as mud and stone, and it pierced through every block in the blink of an eye. With great power, it shrouded Gaia with a bang. With the erosion of the world and the gods, Gaia's divine power continued to regress. And Apollo accommodates the two sources of light, and the divine power is further advanced, and the distance to the highest is only the slightest. Even if the power of the etheric body was not used at this moment, the power of the source of light alone suppressed the divine power of the earth. Supreme Mother Goddess. Feeling the power of Apollo, Gaia hurriedly roared and asked the black goat entrenched in the rich mother river for help. It was like a treacherous goat composed of numerous black sarcomas, and the dark eyes without emotion flashed with brilliance. Suddenly, a turbulent and rich river rushed towards Apollo. But I saw the invisible, eternal eye suddenly opened and closed on the top of the brilliant light. Swish! It emits rays of eternal and immortal brilliance in the middle of the rich mother river. This treacherous river flowing from a foreign land froze in an instant, trembling in the void, as if it were about to collapse. At this time, on Apollo's splendid body, 36 pairs of splendid wings were burning blazingly. The billions of dazzling stars also released majestic rays of light, and the endless galaxy revolved and roared, bursting with boundless power. "Gaia, your way is over." The golden eyes are serious and indifferent, lightly concentrating on the maddening force of the earth, trying to break through the surrounding layers of light and find the plump woman who was alive. A strong breath of death pervades the sky. Boom! 36 pairs of splendid wings flickered, the stars in the universe roared, and Apollo sent a strong one, locking Gaia firmly. The chaotic void was torn apart in an instant. The dark cracks are endless silence and light. Incomparably brilliant light with incomparable heat. Like a fist, like a spear, like a sharp arrow, it slammed down Gaia's chest. No, you are also my heir. You can't kill me. 99 Under the magnificent light and heat, Gaia cried out in despair. But that doesn't change anything. Gorgeous light, blazing heat, surrounded her like a storm. The protection she formed with the mighty power of the earth melted in an instant like an ice cube that encountered high temperature. Infinite light and heat devoured her body, her spirit, and everything she had. The dreamy golden color blooms in this secluded chaos, like a blooming flower. The flower blooms to the extreme, symbolizing the grandmother of the gods of the earth, and life also reaches its limit. In the vast world, the earth, sky, ocean, and mountains all vibrated wildly. Their source has fallen. Violent tremors swept the whole world, lost the mother of the earth, and everything seemed to collapse. Thousands of mortal creatures and many gods are terrified. At this time, in the deepest part of the world, a brilliant light emerged. A piece of ancient sacred parchment written with many mysterious and obscure runes, floating on the top of the void. Under the guidance of its power, the many sources that were on the verge of collapse because of Gaia's fall slowly stabilized. Peace has returned to the world. The gods and many mortal beings breathed a sigh of relief, staring at the brilliant light, reciting the name that belongs to the light. And in the chaos on the periphery of the world, looking at Gaia, who was completely reduced to ashes, Apollo's golden eyes were silent. Feeling the situation inside the world with the covenant contract, he whispered, Gaia fell, and the share of the world she formerly occupied was transferred to me, and chaos withdrew his power. Now most of the world belongs to me completely. The reason why it is said to be the majority is that although chaos condensed his strength, he went to suppress the three heads. But his essence as the real owner of the world is still there. Unless he is completely killed, there is no way to eliminate this share. This was also the reason why Chaos was not in a hurry to usurp Gaia before, because unless Gaia could kill him, it would be impossible to completely seize the world and the pantheon. Over the countless years, he has already left a deep imprint on the Greek world. However, my grasp of the world now is stronger than that of Gaia before, and it is almost impossible for him to bypass me and do anything to the world. Besides, his current troubles are not small at all. Apollo said in a deep voice, his eyes looking into the depths of chaos. As Pallas turned into a human head and merged with the lion head and the bull head, the three heads that seemed to surround the placenta exploded with terrifying stalwart power in the deepest chaos. Chaos showed his true body, a handsome black-haired man with a tall nose and cold eyes. The great power of chaos surrounding the world gathered around him, covering the three constantly spinning heads like tides. Old man, even if you don't die, so what? I am the supreme now, and you are no longer the same. This time, I will make you disappear completely in the long river of history. No matter how many thousands of years later, the world will only remember that I am the creator of this world. Chaos' handsome face flashed cold and ferocious, and the power of vast chaos violently attacked those three heads. Under this mighty force, the body belonging to Pallas exploded and shattered in an instant. Only the heads of humans, lions, and bulls remained, emitting a hazy, clear light, constantly surrounding them. An illusory and real universe, in which the placenta emerged, faintly intertwined with an old and majestic face. Chaos, my son-in-law, the power of the root that contains part of me and ascends to the top. Do you think you can compete with me? This face uttered an incomparably grand voice, like the babble from the source of time, the soft voice of the first birth of the world, good Zhao's. In the rotation of the lion head, the bull head, and the human head, the illusory and real cosmic placenta, the boundless force surged back, tearing the chaos. Old thing, after so many years of acting, you really think of yourself as our creator? It's ridiculous. Oh, I see. Your consciousness has not been fully recovered, and you only have a partial memory, only remembering that you are a pitiful betrayal. But forget the despicable deeds you once did. 35 Chaos couldn't stop sneering, The boundless power of chaos condensed and crushed, and violently collided with the reversing cosmic placenta. Looking at the two figures in this fierce confrontation, the other corner of the chaos, the handsome and gentle fantasy angel Messiah, suddenly appeared beside Nyx, the goddess of the night. Looking at this demure figure with a veil on his face, he said softly, "The head of a bull, the head of a lion, and the head of a man. It seems that he is the one who was betrayed by you after being seriously injured in the confrontation with my father in the past. He is known as the creator god of your world. Qin root time, Chronos. Da. Chapter 204. Under the thin black veil, Nyx's beautiful mouth has a faint smile. If I remember correctly, your father has never returned since he came to us. How did you know so much about what happened after he came to our world? White and golden intertwined, handsome and gentle fantasy angel, staring into the depths of chaos with those pure eyes, with a pious and fanatic tone. This is of course my all-knowing and almighty Father, who foretold before coming and what was to come, told me in advance. Point 35. Oh, if so, did he tell you the true face of the so-called super-primitive Protoss? Nyx's night-like pupils were deeply focused on his pure eyes. The Messiah's expression remained mild. When the Father returns, all this will come to an end. 99. He did not answer the question directly. With his hands tightly folded in front of his chest, he recited in a low voice, "You are the creator of everything. You are the all-knowing and almighty God. You are the beginning and the end. What you say will become a manifestation. 9. The future you proclaimed will come to pass. It really is him, the root time Chronos." Looking at the three heads circling in the depths of chaos, Apollo looked solemn. As early as when he knew the name of Fans and saw Pallas's hidden true face, he had guessed the origin of the other party. There are many versions of Greek mythology. The most ambitious version of the theory is the Orpheus sect, one of the branches of the esoteric system. The root time, Chronos, is the supreme god of the system. He is the creator of chaos and order, the first cause of the world that transcends all things, and the ultimate creator of the universe. All the super-primitive Protoss were created by him. But according to Chaos, there seems to be something wrong. This led to the betrayal of the ultra-primitive Protoss. Of course, the direct cause of this was the omniscient and almighty one from a foreign land. He came to this world a long time ago and had a shocking confrontation with Chronos. As a result of the war, he himself disappeared directly, and Chronos was severely injured and almost fell in the later betrayal. At that time, Fans and Chaos should have betrayed Chronos together, but then Chaos betrayed Fans and others, grabbed the greatest benefits, and ascended to the top. After obtaining some information before and after the contact, Apollo made the above judgment. As he pondered, the duel in the depths of chaos continued. The world placenta surrounded by three heads erupted with unparalleled mighty power, constantly impacting the blockade of chaotic power. Two supreme forces, the impact is constant, tearing the nothingness. DB has been suppressed for countless years and hastily reorganized, and the power of Chronos accompanied the showdown, which seemed to be a bit downturn. However, Chaos is more and more brave in battle, showing the demeanor of the Lord of the world and the God of Chaos. The powerful force swept through the chaotic nothingness and rumbled into the cosmic placenta intertwined with the illusory and the real. The bull's head, the lion's head, and the human's head, which were constantly surrounded, also began to have cracks. "Old man, you really can't do it anymore." "That's right. When you were hit hard by that foreign pillar, your injury has never been better. Half of your roots have been deprived, and the world and the gods have been lost. Even if you were once the best, you are now weak and out of shape." Chaos's voice was filled with excitement and a steady stream of chaotic mighty power, tyrannically impacting the cosmic placenta. At this moment, the old face intertwined with the head of a bull, a lion, and a human head suddenly looked at the rich and fertile mother river that had been silent since Gaia's fall. "The supreme goddess, help me take down this rebel. Only when I return to the peak can I join forces with you to deal with the omniscient Almighty." I can feel that he is about to appear. Accompanied by his voice, the fertile mother river, which flowed silently, suddenly shook. The surging waves surged one by one, and the black goat composed of thousands of sarcomas flashed cold light in its eyes. In the flow of the mother river, a vast force that symbolized the roots of reproduction, abundance, and Een, attacked chaos from the rear. The god of chaos roared angrily. "Exotic god, how dare you intervene in our struggle? It seems that I have been sleeping for a long time to suppress his true body, so that you are completely unaware of my majesty." 99. This powerful supreme, chaotic power lingers around his body, exuding a stalwart aura that shakes the nothingness. One after another tyrannical forces stretched across all directions, simultaneously impacting the rich mother river and the cosmic placenta. In the chaos and nothingness, the war continued. Apollo and Messiah, Nyx and others watched the battle for a long time, and found that although the supreme mother goddess and Kronos are both very powerful supremes, but one is really in a foreign land, and what comes here is just a projection. The other is even more incomplete, and the strength is far less than the peak. In the face of chaos, the complete supreme, even if the two joined forces, they could only barely remain undefeated. "It's fine in this situation, let them stalemate each other first," Apollo whispered. Now that he has gained control of most of the world, and his divine power is approaching the highest, it is time to start preparing for promotion. These three powerhouses are at a stalemate with each other, which will undoubtedly give him enough time and space. Thinking like this, he smiled slightly at Nyx and Messiah on the other side, and the figure entered the world. And when he turned back to Olympus, Phobos, the body of his holy son, blocked in front of the hanged man with a face full of indifference. Looking at the burning sword still firmly stuck in his chest, Phobos said indifferently, "You can't escape today?" Looking at the blond boy in front of him, the hanged man's gray eyes were pale, and he gritted his teeth. "My induction is indeed correct. The sun is my nemesis, and I will perish in your hands. But I'm not reconciled. I still don't know what my origins are." Holding the mottled rust sword that was constantly burning in his chest, the hanged man struggled to stimulate the power of the primordial sea and charged towards Phobos. "You have no chance." Surrounded by the light of the sun, Phobos looked stern, and a thought instantly triggered the flaming sword in the chest of the hanged man. This world-destroying artifact immediately erupted with unparalleled destructive power, tearing apart the gray and depraved body of the hanged man. He let out a scream, his body slammed apart, and a spiritual body escaped into the sky under the cover of the power of the original sea. At this time, Phobos urged the power of the sun to emit terrifying heat and light, blasting a hole in the illusory ocean. The flaming sword flew out and was heavily nailed to the hanged man's spiritual body. His spiritual body also disintegrated, and a glove exuding a strong, degenerate breath appeared in front of Phobos. "Is this the potion characteristic of the hanged man pathway?" Phobos picked it up curiously, but seeing the spirit body of the hanged man, annihilated by the flaming sword, suddenly regrouped on the glove and looked at him coldly. "I can become the head of the king of angels, the left hand of God, but the reason? No one can completely destroy me, who was linked to the original." This wraith-like, illusory, spiritual body roared fiercely. Phobos frowned. It was a very easy task to solve the hanged man, and he was already severely injured. But now that he was obviously killed, how could the spiritual body not be able to be consumed? Phobos did not believe in this evil, so he picked up the burning sword and tried several times. It was found that every time he destroyed the hanged man's spiritual body, he would quickly regroup. Forget it. Although it cannot be completely destroyed anyway, he is extremely weak after reorganization, and there is no threat at all. Phobos shook his head, ready to go back and study slowly. At this moment, a familiar figure appeared in front of him. "Blonde boy, you still have 3 tasks to complete for me." Chapter 205. Holding the glove wrapped around the aura of depravity, Phobos turned his head away. Pandora, holding a black box in her hand, appeared not far away, and she also held a familiar brown-haired figure in her other hand. "Hercules." Phobos glanced at the sleepy guy who kept snoring. Pandora smiled and threw him beside Phobos. With a plop, Hercules woke up in a daze. The rough young man patted his head in confusion, looked around, and said in surprise, "Phoebus, Aren't we going to fight Uriah, Lord of the Mountains, and appearing here like this? Come on, this guy's memory is still stuck in an unknown time ago. Forbes rolled his eyes and coughed dryly. Something happened. I'll take it back and tell you in detail. Hercules said, rummaged around for a while, found the big stick given to him by the goddess of fate, held it, and looked at Pandora. You woman, why are you willing to come out? He shouted. Pandora smiled and said, when you stay alone for a long time, you always have to go out for a walk. Suddenly, the surrounding earth trembled. Phobos frowned and looked into the sky. This vibration seems to come from the ocean, and this place is very close to the sea. Pandora nodded. Gaia died, and the Gigantes, who were suppressed by her and the power of the night, were also broken. Gigantes. Phobos then remembered these servants of fate. The world has been repeatedly usurped several times, and the fate that seems to be able to wake up at any time has not woken up, and people can't help but ignore his existence. The 10th task I want you to do is to destroy Gigantes. Pandora said softly. No problem. Hercules patted his chest excitedly, waving a big stick in his hand. From the moment he woke up, he had a feeling that he had a great work to do. And as Pandora issued the mission, his feeling was very obvious. Phobos, don't rob me this time. Then lousy Gigantes let me solve it. Hercules patted Phoebus on the shoulder and said. The blond boy looked at him deeply for a while. He could also sense that something was wrong with Hercules. This feeling was deep before, but now seeing him again, it is even more intense. Hercules must have a lot to do with fate, and Pandora has a mysterious origin and has a lot to do with fate. She has arranged so many things, and the purpose is probably fate, and now it's time to close the net. Phobos murmured inwardly. His father's body was about to set out to ascend to the highest. With chaos, Kronos, and the supreme goddess restraining each other in chaos, the only thing in the world that can influence this is the fate that once fought chaos. Destiny Moros must have been a powerful existence comparable to the Supreme in the past. In other words, does he have his own world and god system? In any case, this hidden danger must be eliminated before promotion. And borrowing Pandora's hand is a good way. This woman is too mysterious and has always acted in anticipation and manipulation of almost everything. Whether it is Pallas or Gaia, this series of things seems to be within her grasp. This is terrible. She seems to have a close relationship with the equally mysterious Nyx and the exotic Messiah, as well as the omniscient Almighty who does not know where. Now I can just take the opportunity to deal with fate and touch her bottom. Thinking like this, Phobos nodded slightly to her and went overseas with Hercules. Seeing his leaving figure, Pandora's secluded and beautiful eyes suddenly flashed a strange color. Holding the dark and mysterious box in her hand, she murmured, It's almost there. Everything should usher in the beginning and the end. When this box is opened, when that is the beginning and the end of man. 35 The vast ocean was shaking at this moment. Braving the volcanoes of countless magma, the island is constantly erupting. Tall giants with red skin, armed with swords and sticks and other weapons, walked out of the seal of the earth and the night, adhering to the will of fate, stepping across the vast sea and heading for the land. Mother, what should I do? Triton, the sea emperor, who had just recovered his past memories, looked horrified as he looked at the statue of Gigantes who was crossing the border. My child, you are the master of the ocean. Always be calm. 5 Amphitrite, who also recovered her memory, reassured her child softly. His eyes were full of helplessness. Her son is actually a very nice person, with a gentle personality and politeness, but this is not the character that a king should have. He is too simple and too weak. Flowers, our new king of gods has returned to Olympus, and he will soon send someone to suppress these Gigantes. We don't have to worry. Amphitrite whispered. At this time, Triton looked at her and suddenly said, Mother, are you thinking that I am not fit to be a king? Amphitrite was stunned, silent for a while, and nodded to him. Terry sighed and said silently, That's right, I actually think so too. I have neither strong divine power nor outstanding wisdom. If it weren't for your mother's extensive planning and the help of Apollo, I would not have been able to replace God Father and become the Lord of the ocean. Having said that, he said to his mother abruptly and firmly, In the past, The divine court was still led by Uncle Zeus, and Apollo needed us to lead the ocean as his supporters. 0. But now the whereabouts of Uncle Zeus have long been unknown. Although Apollo has not been officially crowned, he is also the de facto king of gods, the gods who rule the entire world. A bitter smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Mother, when he is officially crowned, let's take the initiative to belong to Olympus, which is what you promised in the past. The new divine court should no longer have independent oceans and underworld, only the ocean gods and underworld gods appointed by the divine court. The great king of the gods dominates everything. Amphitrite stared at him blankly and said with relief, "My child, if you can think that your mother is happy for you, I'm afraid that you have ruled the ocean for a long time and have ambitions beyond your ability. In fact, this is very good. The new god king is a generous and great god. Under his leadership, we will live better than before and now." When the two of them were whispering, the gigantes who were advancing on the sea above stopped abruptly. I saw that the sky didn't know when a black stick was smashed, and it covered the heads of these giants at the forefront. This would have been a ridiculous thing. Every gigantes is a giant as tall as a mountain, and his breath is stronger than that of ordinary lord gods. And that wooden stick, which looks ordinary, is what mortals wear for laundry. Compared to the tall body of these red giants, it is small.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.